This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to another year of Winnipeg Sports Talk. What is going on? The vibes are high in the peg right now after a sweep of the Minnesota Wild on the weekend, December 30th and December 31st. That's how you finish an incredible, record-breaking month for the Winnipeg Jets in December, and an unbelievable start to the season as we go into tonight's action with the Tampa Bay Lightning in town to take on the Jets for their lone visit of the year. The Jets, 35 games played, 22 wins, 9 losses, 4 overtime losses, 48 points, 1 point back of Colorado Avalanche in the Central Division with 2 games in hand. Identical record to the Dallas Stars, who have played quite well lately. A 7-2-1 just to keep pace with the Winnipeg Jets. All 3 teams at the top of the Central have been going toe-to-toe right now, and the Winnipeg Jets have this one home game and then head out on the road to Southern California and Northern California for the weekend, and then back at home for a big homestand starting next week. We'll get into all of it because not only was it 2 big wins on the weekend, but a lot of fallout, as one might have expected, considering the rivalry, the bad blood between these 2 teams, the memories of Ryan Hartman. And lo and behold, Ryan Hartman got into it again on the weekend with described by himself to Cole Perfetti an intentional high stick to the face off of a face-off that incredibly just resulted in another fine. I believe that's his 7th from NHL player safety. A bit of a joke. We'll get to all of that as we get into the program. We're going to welcome in Jeff Hamilton and Mike McIntyre. We'll hear from Rick Bowness. And, of course, we'll get into tonight's tilt, the first of 2024 for the Winnipeg Jets against the Tampa Bay Lightning. But hope you all had a wonderful, wonderful New Year's weekend. Now it's time for the hockey club and all of us to get back to business right here on WST. Lots to get to with Remis right out of the gate, so we'll get right into that. But I do want to thank the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Of course, our friends at Coolbet Canada, Little Brown Jug, the Winnipeg Jets, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, Vita Health Fresh Market, Sport Manitoba, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, and Modern Man Barbershop. And we will get into a why not question of the day for our friends at Not Auto Corp at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis, Happy New Year. How was a few days off for you?
Happy New Year. Nice to have a few days off, but I guess as I get older, for me, New Year's used to be a big event. You know, you get a limo, go to a bar with all your friends. Now, you know, I'm older, got young kids, just a regular night. I was actually editing Connor's episode of Jets Weekly on, what day was that? On New Year's Eve. Did very well, so check it out on our channel. Connor recaps the Minnesota games, so it was nice to have a couple days off, and I'm looking forward to getting back at it in 2024, and we'll see if the Jets can silence all of the doubters who think, well, they fell off a cliff last year, you know, and when the calendar turned. It's the same team. They're going to do it again, and I think anyone who's watching knows that it's not the same team. They have a number of different players on forward. One of them who had a big part of the weekend, especially in the Saturday's game, Nino Niederreiter, with multiple goals. So I'm feeling good, Huss. Looking forward to getting back at it, and looking forward to another week of Jets and some late games. We have love the late starts.
You know what? Listen, I'm going to pull the curtain back here for a minute, and I'm going to give you a lot of credit for coming up with a very happy demeanor heading into the program.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you that 5 minutes ago, Michael Remis admitted to me that he had not been as unhinged about an incident in a game or a particular player, maybe ever, than this continuing saga with Ryan Hartman and the Winnipeg Jets. We all remember in the final game between these two clubs last year, in apparent retaliation for Logan Stanley injuring Kaprizov in what anybody with any sense of common sense would realize was just an awkward play that happens at times in hockey, and it was an unfortunate injury to Kaprizov. Hartman decided that he'd take a cheap shot at Nikolai Ehlers, which knocked him out for the rest of the regular season and basically all the playoffs. He came back in Game 5 against Vegas. And then in Game 2 yesterday of this weekend series, right off the bat, early in the club, and I thought Dave Minuk did a great job of isolating that and getting that out right away, to which point I retweeted, Hartman is such a rat. I mean, as egregious a high stick that you'll see that was somehow missed on the ice. But I'm even more choked that, listen, I know there's been a ton of bitching and complaining from Minnesota, and I get it. One of your top players is out. The Brendan Dillon play against Kaprizov happens 30 times a game on both sides. I mean, for people to be saying, oh, Dillon should be suspended. Listen, if you're suspending for that, you're going to basically be playing with short rosters and barely any defensemen, because that happens all. This business with Hartman yesterday, Remo, was or a Sunday, I guess, a completely different story. And credit to Cole Perfetti for sort of laughing it off and taking the win and the 2 points and saying, see you later, and enjoy battling for a wild card spot. But I don't blame you or a lot of Jet fans for being pretty pissed off about that particular incident as much as many of the things the Wild have done to this club over the last number of years.
Look, I could spend the whole show talking about this Ryan Hartman. I feel like he's like a heel in wrestling. You just can't stand the guy, but he's actually not a good guy, contrary to what Cole Perfetti said in his surprisingly very calm media availability today. But I think we should recognize the Jets' back-to-back wins, sweeping Minnesota. Yes. We don't need to. I don't want to focus. I do want to focus on that, but I mean, they beat them twice, really knocked them down in the standings. They're 16, 15, and 4, and I think we need to celebrate the Winnipeg Jets having, as you said, the best record after 35 games, 22, 9, and 4, 10, 1, and 2 in December, with overtime losses to Montreal, Chicago, and another loss to San Jose as well. So not exactly the cream of the crop. 25 straight games, Huss, of allowing 3 or less goals. And, were pretty good defensively last year, but it was scoring. And if the top guys weren't going, they weren't getting it from elsewhere. And you certainly saw it on the weekend. How about Dominic Toninato, who's been, he's incredible. He was on one of Connor's third start of the week, and the hardest working Jet. Game-winning goal on Sunday, insurance marker on Saturday. And check out this picture, actually, on our Instagram. This was the picture of the goal. I mean, look at this. Look at his expression. You think these guys knew how big of a win it was? Here, let me grab it. Sorry. Know how they wanted to beat these guys. Minnesota Jets rivalry. It's got to be up there for number one right now. And awesome to see a guy from Minnesota stick it. But I mean, it's hard to talk about this without talking about the rivalry that's going on the ice. As you said, Logan Stanley, I joked all last year, gave Kaprizov the bonsai drop. I don't know what Kaprizov's doing. Guy's coming towards him, and he turns his back. And Logan Stanley couldn't adjust quick enough and basically sat on him. Unfortunate injury. And yeah, Ehlers goes to, he's back checking. Is nowhere near the puck, and Hartman just takes him out. And Ehlers, misses the playoffs, as you said. And yeah, I mean, Brendan Dillon, he's playing a guy who has the puck. You give him a couple little shoves in the back. It happens every game, Huss. Nothing plays. Sucks. Kaprizov got injured. His leg buckled awkwardly on that play. It was pretty weird for that soft of a cross check, seemingly, but it sucks. And I don't know.
But according to some people, that was one of the most egregious, vicious attacks we've seen in the game in a long time.
I can't believe. believe that. So for him to go up to a guy and just slash him in the face off of face-off, Huss, I mean, zero respect. Clearly zero respect for any player. And although he did it very respectfully, we'll play the clips from Perfetti. I'm just so livid over that someone could be that much of, I don't know, I want to say cowardly play, targeting Ehlers, the smallest guy who's just back checking or slashing Perfetti in the face off when you're not suspecting. I don't know. Wait, if you're going to take him out, wait till they have the puck and line him up as part of the game, not just outside. But maybe that's why I've never played the game at the NHL level, so maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Well, it's tough look for the code, got to tell you. I mean, I thought everything had been taken care of when Lowry had to fight Pat Maroon right off the faceoff of game number 2. Wasn't that the whole point of everything? And then 2 minutes later, Hartman is deliberately high-sticking Cole Perfetti, of all guys, the smallest. This is not to diminish Cole, what an unbelievable player, but I mean, if we were doing a power poll of the toughest Winnipeg Jets, I think it's safe to say that Cole would be in the bottom half. It's just garbage. And I mean, this is not the first time this guy's done before. And I mean, let me get to this rap sheet, folks. This is why this business from NHL player safety is so laughable. I mean, they talk about repeat offenders. This is Hartman's 7th fine from the NHL. And I believe he's been suspended twice since April. And then you add into the fact that he told Perfetti to his face while mic'd up, and we'll get to this audio a little later on, that he did it on purpose, and that was for what happened to Kaprizov yesterday. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, how that is the just worthy of a fine? No idea. But I'm sure everybody in chat has their own opinion on how this should be handled on February 2nd, 20th by the Winnipeg Jets. Apparently, and we'll get to Bones as well. He said that, Cole basically didn't mention any of this until, well, not only did he go back to the dressing room, get stitched up, return to the game, help the team beat the Wild again, but he didn't mention it until after the game. And Bones had said that, that probably would have been handled differently. I mean, the bottom line is the best way to stick it to your arch rival is to bring out a broom and sweep them in a 2-game series, which is exactly what the Winnipeg Jets did. But I will say this, this is far from over between these two hockey teams. And as we get closer to the 20th of February, I have a feeling there'll be plenty more between these two clubs. And I mean, we'll see where they are at that time in the standings. The one thing the Winnipeg Jets did, Reem, and this is what I had said sort of as we got into the weekend on Friday, the Jets have the opportunity to really step on the throat of the Minnesota Wild, and they did exactly that. Wild now 12 points behind Winnipeg, and 2 very costly losses for them as they had that great 11-3 run under 11-3 run under John Hines after he took over for the fired Dean Evison. But back-to-back regulation losses hurt. Other teams are winning games. You're losing spots in the standings, and the Wild, after that terrible start to the season, still have to play at a very, very good clip if they want to even be in the postseason tournament.
Yeah, let's take a look here at the Central Division standings. Winnipeg Jets and Dallas Stars, you mentioned. They're tied, same record, 22-9-4. That's pretty crazy. And Colorado's played 2 more games, and they have 1 more point, 23-11-3. I mean, of all teams, look, Colorado 7-2-1 in their last 10, even if we've been talking about how they're kind of, not that juggernaut they were when they won the Cup. The Jets 7-1-2 in their last 10, and Dallas 7-2-1. So they're all playing, everyone in the Central is playing very well. Minnesota, they're still 7-3-0 in their last 10, but here they are, 7th now in the division, behind St. Louis, behind Arizona, who we're going to see on this road trip, behind Nashville. Now they've played some less games than some of those teams, but they needed one of those points. It's a division rival. They could, if they would have swept, they would have really gained some ground on the Jets. They didn't. They got carried away with, whatever BS was going on off the ice, and they lost. And the Jets were able to have a big comeback there on Sunday. What a fun Sunday, Huss, for Minnesota sports fans on New Year's Eve, wasn't it? You lose the second game of a back-to-back to the Jets, and the Vikings get embarrassed on Sunday Night Football. So it must have been a wonderful New Year's Eve there in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
And hey, listen, I mean, that is really the funny part of it all, is that there was tons of Jet fans that were at that game. And then a whole bunch of them probably threw their Viking stuff on and went to that game. US Bank Stadium. And listen, I am a guy that, listen, my team is an AFC team, so I don't really have a horse in the NFC. But I would say I cheer for the Vikes. I mean, I got a lot of friends that are Vikings fans. They're the closest team. I go to games. I mean, if you're going to tell me one team in the NFC was going to have a lot of success, I'd go with Minnesota. I wasn't too bad to see them get their asses kicked by the Green Bay Packers on Sunday night, because I knew that would add even more salt into the wounds of the Wild, considering what had happened. I mean, I'll say one thing, Remis, we have a legitimate great rivalry now for the Winnipeg Jets. It took a while, but this one is it. And I think you can really look at the last, since 2011. This is the most heated rivalry, I think, that we've seen the Jets play in. And it took a little while. Obviously, they did have that playoff series a few years ago, but I know the NHL will tell you, well, rivalries only come out of actually playing playoff series. No, they come from very questionable actions by players on both teams, and it turns into what we've got on the weekend. But bottom line, Jets did what they came out to do, and that is put their foot in the Wild's throats, win 2, and get back to Winnipeg as the hottest team in the National Hockey League over the past 2 months.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of other incidents that come to mind. Maybe people in chat can help me. I remember Josh Morrissey cross-checked Eric Stahl in the neck in a playoff game. There's the other one. Oh yeah, Marcus Foligno got fined for what he got in a fight with Adam Lowry and kneed Lowry in the head as he was getting up, which I don't know why these Minnesota players can't, hit a Jet during play. They always have to do it after. Like the other time, Marcus Foligno, the PLD was in a scrum and just went into the scrum and punched him in the back of the head. I think that's why it's so baffling. Like, you thought these guys had some respect for each other, respect for their opponent, respect for the game, but they don't. And, see Ryan Hartman get fined today $4,427.08, the maximum allowable under the CBA for high-sting Perfetti. Like, why would any player just line up and take a draw? He's been fined 7 times already. Like, why wouldn't you just go and slash a guy in the face instead of going after the puck? Because it seems like that's perfectly allowable by the NHL.
Lowry's got a few bigger stones. I mean, he goes up against Maroon. He took on Reeves when they threw him out with 30 seconds left in the game. Like, the Wild, I mean, all I can say, and I don't think this is, I can't really think of another team that has really done that. I mean, you have, and certainly the Jets haven't done that before. I mean, the Jets have had issues, with players getting injured due to, borderline stuff, illegal stuff. I don't remember the Jets at any point taking runs at, smaller skill players on other teams, especially like the way Hartman's done twice now. I'd love to get a comment from NHL player safety as to whether they knew and had the information that Hartman told Perfetti that was on purpose and that was why that he did it before they sent out the fine. Because, again, this is a guy that's been fined twice in the last year. He's been fined 7 times. If you're going to have any credibility whatsoever with saying that you take repeat offenders seriously, you can't be tossing this guy an invoice for $4,000 and say good luck tonight against Calgary.
I was thinking about this, like, I've had so many Minnesota fans in my mentions on Twitter. Like, you should see what people have been calling me. It's kind of crazy. And, I don't think the Jets fans or the players didn't just go after anyone on LA in that last game because Blake Lizotte injured Balharry on a questionable play. They just went in and beat them. And Balharry had the mic drop after. And the Jets are playing Anaheim this week, and last time they played, it was Ryan Strome who took out Kyle Connor, who did skate over the weekend, but still on the same 6 to 8 week timeline for recovery. But I don't think any player on the Jets is going to go after an Anaheim Ducks player because of that. And it's just it's this wild Jets rivalry that's so heated. And like I saw Michael Russo, the beat writer for the Wild and Athletic, telling someone to F off on Twitter because they were calling Kaprizov soft or something. It's spilling over. Like, not just, like, we have, like, Connor put out that Jets Weekly, and some Wild fan came in the comment section and made a comment that was so out of touch with reality that I didn't even.
Was great.
I just didn't even respond. I didn't respond. So, I mean, it's entertaining. It's fun. It's given me some passion for the game, but I don't. I just think the lack of discipline from player safety, it kind of just keeps it going. Like so Hartman got suspended a game last year, and Ehlers was out until the playoffs, and came back at like 50%, and now we got fined $4,000. Like, it doesn't do anything. And as you said it right, I mean, I thought Lowry and Maroon dropping the gloves 2 seconds in, that was supposed to solve everything, wasn't it? Obviously not.
I was looking for my copy of the code. I can't find it, but I'm pretty sure from what I remember that, that's supposed to calm the temperatures down and everything. Hey, credit to the Jets, though. Like, they did not run around like a bunch of idiots in that game and get off of their game. Like, I think that's part of the reason why Minnesota's frustrated. They, I mean, the Jets are just better than them this year and right now. And they're better than most of the teams in the National Hockey League right now. And they got a huge test tonight against a team that has been, pretty much the standard for excellence over the past 5-6 years, or one of them. And that, of course, is the Tampa Bay Lightning. But, I mean, the Jets showed a lot of composure. And as much as Bones says, Mal, we didn't know at the time, maybe we wouldn't have been as composed if a guy's doing like that to a player like Cole Perfetti. Often victory is the best dessert to serve after something like that. And listen, there were some other things we kind of need to get into more of the games, and we'll do that with Mike, who's going to join us, and we'll talk about it with Hammer as well. The power play was a big part of the win on Sunday. And another great thing that happened on Saturday was the first sellout of the arena. And I know that had been a big topic. I mean, listen, it'll continue to be a big topic because it is very important that, this building has a lot more fans in it than were there at the beginning of the year. And again, this is a Tuesday night in the middle of winter. I'm not sure. Certainly, like, the way the team has played, it should be sold out. I'll say that much. But it was like Saturday, the crowd was great. It was so great to see, like, every single seat in the upper bowl full. And once again, Remo, and again, we'll get to these Perfetti clips in just a second. Like this weekend, it wasn't about Gabriel Velarde and Mark Scheifele and Nikolai Ehlers. You mentioned Dominic Toninato. I mean, that fourth line, Toninato was out there in the final minute protecting the lead. And he deserved to be out there at that time. And Rick Bowness very correctly said, hey, he's a point-a-game player. Been up for 3 games, got 3 points, a huge, huge goal. And one of the great stories, as, Kapari's been injured, and Kyle Connor has been injured, and David Gustafson had to leave the lineup. First it was Axel, now it's Toninato. Guys coming in and making the most of their opportunities. And frankly, on a team as deep as this, you better play well. You're in the lineup. And those guys not only played well, they were a real driving force in the wins on the weekend.
Yeah, Toninato, you saw him at the end, as you said, with some big shot blocks protecting that lead on Sunday. Point per game player, 1 goal, 2 assists. And these guys aren't just scoring, with the 7th goal of a blowout. I mean, they score a nice insurance marker, responding to the Wild on Saturday, and the go-ahead goal on Sunday. And, you've seen what Barron won fastest skater last year at the skills competition. Last week at the skills competition, Axel is winning fastest skater. So these guys are skilled guys getting in on the forecheck and help setting the tone. And they've always talked about all the lines looking the same. And Nito Niederreiter is, again, a guy, we talk about how good this addition was, goes to the net, puts in some big goals there on Saturday. I know he's second with Mark Scheifele in goals. And it wasn't the top guys on the weekend. It was, the bottom part of the lineup. And the power play is definitely still a concern. You think they have good players, but how about Nemesnikov showing how it's done? No more just holding the puck, looking for, the perfect tap in, just curls and wires it home. An incredible shot, and you'd like to see more of that. It seemed like they tried to get more shots on net in that Saturday game when they had those power plays, but just couldn't quite beat the Wild goalie there. So it's something certainly to figure out. But hey, if you're having a December, Huss, 10-1-2, 22-9-4. It's amazing to think what they could be if they were able to score some of these power play goals.
Hey, listen, just before we bring in, we hear from Cole Perfetti, and the guys are going to come up in a couple minutes, and we knew we had a lot to start. Have to give a big shout out and congratulations to everybody involved with the PWHL, the Professional Women's Hockey League, with 6 franchises. Started out yesterday, a New Year's Day game at the Mattamy Athletic Center in Toronto. It was New York versus Toronto. New York ended up winning. Obviously, this is great for hockey. It is massive for women's hockey, women's sports in general here in Canada and United States, North America. And as someone, has worked in women's hockey before, or, putting on that World Women's here, which is something I'm as proud of as almost anything that I've done in my professional career. This is so overdue. And man, it was great to see how well it was supported. A full barn yesterday. Apparently, they're going to have a full house tonight in Ottawa, which I believe is over 8,000 for the debut of the Ottawa team. But a special, it is Winnipeg Sports Talk. And, of course, Jocelyn Larocque's going to be a big star in that league. And we've tried to get her on today. But there's a bunch of other Manitobans in the league. And the goalies yesterday, I'm not sure really people knew this, but Corrine Schroeder, who won and got the first ever PWHL shutout yesterday, is from Elm Creek, Manitoba, and facing her in the other end of the barn was Kristen Campbell from Brandon. So listen, congratulations to all of the women, everyone involved in that league. I know our pal Scooch was helping out with the broadcast with Cheryl Powder and Danielle Ponticelli. So we'll have to talk to him about that first game. He was there in the building. But, Remo, just as I figured, I knew we were going to get lost in all this wild craziness and, the game tonight. Important to give a big shout out to the women for a great start to that league, and something that I think is going to be really, really influential at lower levels as women's hockey and girls hockey continues to grow.
Yeah, historic game. I love how they had it, January 1st, celebrating a new year and celebrating a new league. And they tried to have, they had multiple leagues. And finally, there's one league, and it seemed like they have great support from multiple TV partners. The games are going to be on TSN, Sportsnet, CBC, and they had, Billie Jean King doing the ceremonial face-off. And you saw, was watching on TSN on SportsCenter, the excitement of Cheryl Pounder and Tessa Bonhomme, who kind of paved the way to have, players who've paved the way to have a professional women's league. You're seeing it in soccer and basketball. There's no reason why this couldn't work in hockey, and it seems like they're on the right path here with this new league. And looking forward to seeing how it does this year and next year as well, and years to come. So really exciting stuff yesterday with the Pro Women's Hockey League.
Yeah, and listen, whenever women do things like this, there's always, for whatever reason, there's a bunch of naysayers that want to crap all over it. Those people can do their thing, can waste their breath. Where it matters? It matters for the athletes, and it matters in the stands. And the people have spoken. With a sellout crowd last night, the Toronto team's entire season is sold out. And this turnout tonight in Ottawa, it's certainly going to be great. And I did see, I think it was James Robinson that said, when's True North getting a PWHL team in Canada Life Center? I have heard nothing about that. But I would imagine that that's a long ways away because they've started this league with 6 teams, 3 teams in Canada, 3 teams in the United States. And I don't doubt that there's more talent available to make 8 teams or 10 teams. But like with anything early on, you have to walk before you can run. I think they're going to make sure that this is economically viable, well supported, grow it. and then move on. And just with the size of our market, I would not think that we'd be at the front of the list for a team. I could be wrong. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if you see, maybe next year, ironically, we're talking about our hate on for Minnesota, the Minnesota team to play here. I could see them taking some of these regular season games and showcasing the league in other Canadian markets. So if that happens, we'll be there for it. But I mean, just a really cool moment for women's hockey. And Manitoba, I know the folks at Hockey Manitoba were incredibly proud because, both starting goaltenders being Manitoba natives and Karine Schroeder getting the shutout against Kristen Campbell for the first day of the PWHL. Reem, we tease this. We can get to more of this with Mike because Hammer is ready to go. But you want to just play the maybe the money Perfetti clip on the
Sure.
Hartman intentions. I sort of teased that enough. I think people will go crazy if we don't get
Sure,
that.
we'll play
get
this.
that
This is, I guess Mike asked Cole Perfetti if Ryan Hartman made his intentions clear before the slash, and this is what very, very calm Cole Perfetti had to say. I'm really shocked at his demeanor because I would have been cutting a WWE style promo if I was him. But anyways, enough about me. Let's play Cole.
He made it pretty obvious, He did it he said it in kind of a respectful way. He said, no disrespect, nothing against you, just, it had to happen. Something had to happen against, what happened to Kaprizov there. He's obviously going to be out for a little bit, and, I don't think Dilly was trying to hurt him. I think he was just playing heavy, and that's just, that play happens. He wasn't, I don't think, trying to be a bad guy. I think he was just, that's what he thought he needed to do to get back at us. And that's what he chose to do. And, I was saying to a couple of guys, lucky it wasn't like a cheap shot hit or from behind or to the head or something that could have been serious. Luckily, it was just a couple stitches. And, kind of a weird thing to come out and admit it, that, he blatantly said that, it was for what happened. Well, I didn't even do anything in the play. I had nothing to do with it. And, hey, whatever. It's all good.
Well, there's Perfetti taking the high road. Believe me, you would not find Ryan Hartman doing that to Brendan Dillon. I can assure you of that. We'll have more from Perfetti, and Mike McIntyre's coming up. Jeff Hamilton's first up. What a way to start off 2024 with the hammer. But hey, folks, we've talked about how this team has been playing. There's more than 500 of you in here. By the way, hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Simple. You just press that button. We'll have your WST latest for you in your YouTube feed if you can't join us live. But one more game this week at home, and then it's on the road. What better way to kick off the new year than getting down to Canada Life Center and taking in two of the best teams in the league in the Winnipeg Jets and the Tampa Bay Lightning. They do have 4, 6, 8 game packs. If you've now sort of been convinced, you've been turned around and want to make it more like Saturday's sold-out crowd, you've got tonight, 4 big games next week, Columbus, Chicago, Philly, and then the Islanders the following Tuesday. But they still do have some New Year's deals going on with a couple tickets and a toque for selected games. Check that out. Go to winnipegjets.com/tickets to count yourself in for the hottest team in the National Hockey League. Hey, also want to give a shout out to our friends at Canadian Club. It was a great new year, and now we move into the new year and get ready for Bomber season. Of course, Canadian Club is a big sponsor and the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts for all the Canadian Club favorites, including original 100% rye CC Classic 12-year-old. And of course, limited supplies remaining of the CC Invitation Series 15-year-old Sherry Cask, the signature classic 12-year-old whiskey finished with a secondary aging in Oloroso Sherry Casks. All the hallmarks of classic Canadian Club with the added richness of sweetness of sherry, available now at your local Manitoba liquor marts. Well, we're into January. Donnie and the gang had those great deals on booster cables and an ice fishing package over the course of Boxing Day and into the new year. Right now, though, things are going to get real when it comes to this winter. The holidays are over, and you know that these next 2 months are the toughest when it comes to winter weather. Do not be that guy on the side of the road calling your buddy for a boost, or you got to make sure that you don't need those booster cables and that your battery can handle it. You can pop by Manitoba Battery at 1026 Logan Avenue for a free battery test to see where you're at, or just simply get the best price in town on any battery, period. Prices beating the pants off the big box stores with the best service in town, because Manitoba Battery will deliver it to you anywhere inside the perimeter for free on any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. Get on over to manitobabattery.com to order, or pick up the phone and give them a call at 783-8787. And don't forget, their winter-ready deals are still on right now. And hey, new year, new look, new you. Maybe you pop down to Modern Man Barber Shop and get a new look for 2024. Modern Man has 8 locations in Winnipeg, including the newest locations on Pembina Highway or Plessis Road. They've got you covered, fellas, with haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Book your look via modernmanbarber.com. And make sure to give them a follow on Instagram as well at Modern Man Barbershops. All right, let's get into the new year with our old pal, Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. Hammer, what's up? How was your weekend? How was the New Year's?
Us, the weekend was great. Took full advantage of the 3-day long weekend. Finished up our fantasy in third place, so I got my money back. A little bit of a silver lining to my loss to you. I'm curious on how you did this weekend. But yeah, overall, man, pretty good. It still feels like winter hasn't, Winnipeg hasn't exactly invited winter to town. So it's been nice to kind of take advantage of this beautiful weather. So I can, definitely not as good as the Winnipeg Jets are doing right now, but maybe a shade or two a little under that, but still pretty well, man.
Yeah, just quick note on that. My luck ran out. I had, and I talked about this before. I mean, to go 6-0 in fantasy is unlikely on any week. To do it twice in a row is almost impossible. So I was expecting that my luck would sort of run out. It didn't entirely. Won a couple of the finals. But yeah, I didn't get run over by Aitken, Mr. Josh Frey-Sam. But congratulations go to Josh. He's gonna come on the show next week. He'll be able to do a bit of a victory lap, and we'll talk some nice NFL getting into playoffs. But
he does know his stuff, man. He does know NFL. Like, he breathes it, eats and breathes it. So congrats on him.
Listen, there's a lot of people do. I mean, we've got someone on the other side of the microphone that is still irate that he had the most points all season long, managed to lose that one game in the semi, and then got Harrison Butkered. What was it, 25 points by the kicker, and he lost by 4?
And I'm sorry, Remo, I didn't reply to you. I figured I'd let that laundry just air itself out and go for it. I mean, I didn't. I wanted to say sorry, but then I looked at my score. I put up 180 this week. That would have carried me through to a championship, as I predicted earlier in the season. And so it's fantasy football, man. It's impossible to predict what happens. And I think we've all been screwed by a kicker before. It was nice to be on the winning side of one for once.
Yeah, I mean, that was the same reason why I didn't text you after beating you by 60 last week in the semis. I just wanted to sort of leave it. Wait for the show to talk about it. But yeah, congratulations to Josh. Josh's debut on WST will be next week, and I'll get to ask him. This is just a quick aside. His name was Aitken on it, and he uses the Cam Newton font. If you recall, have you ever seen Cam Newton do his tweets and it's in that weird?
The only reason I even know about it is because of the recent messing around with. Who was he messing around with recently? He was tied up. Cam Newton was tied up in some drama this past weekend I saw it on social media this past weekend for messaging somebody. I forget who it is, a star in the NFL, but it wasn't him. It was somebody else who was catfishing him, and he had to come out. But in the effort to catfish him, he used some of those wonky symbols. So now that you mention it right now, I'm starting to clue in, because when I was reading this thing, I was like, wasn't your first thought like, this is a lunatic? But now that you're catching me up to speed here, that he actually uses that font quite often, then now I feel like now it's all starting to make way more sense.
Yeah, that is that's Cam Newton's thing, and he's always used that. And the first thing I saw, I'm like, Josh is going with the Cam Newton style font. Interesting move. Maybe he's a big Cam Newton guy. We'll never know. Let's get to some hockey though, and I got to tell you, I mean, you know me. I mean, this has been a fun first half of the season. I know we're not quite yet at the first half mark, but man, as we get in here and do this first show of the year, we got all this hate on with the Wild, which is fun to talk about. But big picture, Jeff, I mean, to think that the Jets are where they are right now, coming off the best month this team and franchise, I believe, has ever had. There's a lot of credit to be doled out, but it is one of those things where it takes a long time because this is a team that is not being carried by one or two players. It's a team that's getting contributions from every single guy in the lineup, from the coaching staff, the organization, and it's all kind of clicking in a way that I think is legitimately exciting to anybody with skin in the game when it comes to the Winnipeg Jets.
You're absolutely correct. You're getting contributions from all, up and down the depth chart. If you look at those two games against the Wild, we talked about this last week that the Wild weren't pushovers, right? They just, we were talking about how great it was that the Winnipeg Jets rallied to beat a great Boston Bruins team. Well, the Wild had done it twice that week, sandwiched between the Winnipeg's victory over the Bruins, and so you knew they were going to be a tall test. And just to see their resiliency, it's just, it's incredibly impressive. And, we've done the comparisons. You've done the comparisons. I've done the comparisons of, everyone who covers this team has done the comparisons between last year and this year. And it's just this group is just proving over and over again that they're nothing like last season, even though they have a lot of the same bodies. And you look at the consistent way in which they play, and, you can look at specific areas of the roster. The goaltending, is incredible. The defense is certainly playing, is exceeding, I think, a lot of people's expectations. The Winnipeg Jets being allowing the second fewest goals in the National Hockey League. I wonder when that was the last time that happened. You look at the contributions up front. If obviously the Jets would want to get that power play going. It was nice to get one on the man advantage against the Wild, on New Year's Eve. But just their 5-on-5 play. I mean, all areas. I mean, but it's really their brand. It's the style in which they're playing. It looks and feels like playoff hockey, and not in the way that guys are going balls to the wall, running, eventually going to run out of energy by mid-March. It's structured 5-on-5 hockey and a blueprint that they've not just adapted to, they've completely bought into it, and you're seeing it night in and night out. You're seeing them do what teams used to do to them, where it would be waiting out and playing that consistent style, trusting that brand of hockey, and then getting rewarded for it. And obviously a lot of credit to Rick Bowness, but the players are answering the bell, if you will. And I mean, you look at the coaching again, and you look at at that 3-2 win against the Wild. You had already talked about Dominic Toninato and his contribution late in that game, how obviously the game-winning goal, how meaningful it was. But the fact that he was out there at the end of the game defending a 1-goal lead is exactly the leadership that this team needs from their coaching staff. Those guys, in the fourth line, need to know that if they're playing the way that they're expected to be playing, and that they're going to be rewarded for it. And I think that's the thing that I personally appreciate most about Rick Bowness and what he brings to the team is he's not just acknowledging and rewarding guys because he feels like he needs to give them a cookie to play better. That's the best way you're going to win the game. He can identify who is playing the best hockey at what point in the game, and he has no problem, if you're on the fourth line or on the first line, to throw you out there in key situations. And that's just all wrapped up in confidence. It's a broad term, but that's exactly what you're seeing with this team. You're seeing the confidence in execution. You're seeing the confidence in, the way they interact with media and talk about difficult things post game. It's like you can tell that things are lighter, and when things are lighter from winning, it's just a better feeling, better vibes. And so the energy around this team is certainly something that is clearly amongst the best in the NHL. But it must be something great for fans to be able to see this team and know, or at least trust that night in and night out, that same looking team is going to show up. And that's the kind of brand of hockey you need to play to be successful in the playoffs. And we're seeing it right now with the Winnipeg Jets through almost a first half of the season here.
Well, and I mean, you kind of laid it out, but I mean, this is everyone is pulling on the same rope, and they've been doing it, buying into a style of play that has certainly produced tons of offense, but has made this the most defensively responsible and tight team we've seen ever. As of today, the last time the Jets gave up more than 3 goals in a game was 2 months ago against
25 games or what?
Against the Vegas Golden Knights. In that 5-2 loss in Vegas on November 2nd. And since then, it's been 2 or 3. And they've been the hottest team in the NHL since the 4th of November as well. But these goaltending numbers for December are next level. Hellebuck, 7 wins, no regulation losses, 2 OT losses, a 188 goals against average, and a 934 save percentage. LB, 3-1, a 1.7 goals against average, a 946 save percentage. And I'm sure both of those guys would be the first to tell you that every player in that dressing room has had a big hand in doing what they're doing defensively. And I mean, I know Bones at this point of the season doesn't want to get too high, but he's got to be incredibly, incredibly happy with the way his team looks right now, and how they're buying in. And it seems like, this process of Bones taking over last year and trying to instill some changes, many of them sort of happened. A lot fell off the rails. A lot of it came down to the personality of the team, I think. And, I jokingly put out a Happy New Year tweet to everyone, but especially Captain Adam Lowry. And I thought about, Lowry's year of 2023. I mean, he came in, I believe I'm getting the timing right, in the midst of that 20-goal scoring drought. And there was a lot of people that were saying, this guy's can't play in the top 9, was dragging the team down. If you look back at what got this team to the playoffs, Connor Hellebuck obviously played a ton and was great. I'm not sure there was a more impactful player for the Winnipeg Jets through the last 20 of the season last year to get the team in than Adam Lowry. And then the effects of him taking over the captaincy and being that leader in the room. And we showed it again 2 seconds into the game on Sunday against the Wild, Jeff. What a year it's been for Lowry. And looking back, and I mean, we spent a ton of time here saying, do you go with Morrissey? Do you go with Lowry? And this is no shot to Josh. He's playing at an incredibly elite level. Adam Lowry's proven them right every single day with what he's doing right now. And I'm not sure we can overstate the effect of him as a player in the lineup, but also as a captain and what that has done to this team overall.
Well, and even if you want to go all the way back to the first half of last season, as you mentioned, Huss, where he wasn't, he was awful offensively. He couldn't. He had
a good start and then just went ice cold for like 25 games.
Couldn't score if his life depended on it. It was just, it was a bad stretch. But during that stretch, he knew and understood that he wasn't playing well. It wasn't like it wasn't like he was wearing it every day, but he was understanding that he needed to be better. I mean, he's the kind of guy, when you talk about accountability, Adam Lowry is the epitome of accountability with his team. And it makes him the perfect person to wear that captaincy because, he brings a lot to the team. Of course, he brings, that offensive upside to a certain degree. I mean, no one's asking him to be leading this team or be the top 5 scorer on this team. But, as a guy who's centering the third line, he needs to chip in offensively. He's done that and continued to do that since getting out of that funk. But he just brings a certain personality and levity almost to the locker room. Like he's a guy that we had this conversation before. I mean, back when, obviously the Winnipeg Jets didn't have a captain last season. And as we neared towards the end, the conversation started to be, well, who's going to be the next captain? As you mentioned, it was, a lot of people, I think most people thought Josh Morrissey would be the guy. And then there were, another sector of people who felt Adam Lowry because of the way he, the way he pretty much represented Winnipeg and the style in which he plays, and just the kind of person that fans have come to know him, would be another, great option. But the hit was that he was going to be a fourth liner, that, he was only going down. Well, he seems to only be getting better. And the reality is the players inside that locker room had a completely different perspective. Now, again, no disrespect to Josh Morrissey. Josh Morrissey is a terrific member of this team and a crucial part. Certainly you could argue a more important part than Adam Lowry when it comes to, to his, his role and his, what he needs to do every day and what the expectations of him are every day. But everybody in that locker room talked about Adam Lowry being the slam dunk captain. And, it was for various reasons. It was for his willingness to do what we saw at the beginning of that Minnesota Wild game on New Year's Eve. It's his willingness to do that, whether it's at the start of the game or at the end of the game. He always has his teammates back. It's his, it's just his ability to kind of be friends with everybody in the locker room. I mean, the Jets, yes, we're seeing now that they're a tight locker room, but not everybody is buddy on a team. And there's different parts of teams, whether you're at the top of the depth chart or the bottom. There was a different feeling to it. And you can just tell that Adam Lowry's role now is, with the C, to have that voice, to have a bigger voice, is bringing everybody together. And with guys like Rick Bowness and rewarding, players for playing well, you're starting to see this, a really cohesive culture where, guys are rooting each other on, and there's a really healthy competition to succeed. And then again, you add the commitment to the way they're playing, the blueprint, knowing that if you can limit the number of goals in your net, your natural offensive abilities on more nights than not are going to get you through games. And again, I think we're just seeing all these different things that needed improvements, various levels of improvements, all improved this season. And we're seeing really the potential I think a lot of people felt with this team on paper come through on the ice through, again, the first half of the year this season.
It's funny looking back through the year, and we sort of did that. We put together, by the way, if you haven't seen it, it's on the YouTube channel. When you're finished watching this, get over. Obviously, Connor's got a great Jets this week. But we also did a best of Bones, where Remis and I played some of his more memorable press conferences and talked about it. And I think about in January, Jeff, I'm pretty sure it was January 30th. The Jets had been struggling. They had lost their first two at home on a short homestand. We're down 2-0. The Boo Birds came out at the arena, and Josh Morrissey, that was the Morrissey game. He basically put the team on his back. I think he scored a couple goals. He was in on all four. They came back and won the game, and he did the, kind of get up. And
I think he swore. Didn't he swear?
Yeah, I believe he did. I believe he mixed one in. And after the game, I mean, I said, what are we waiting for? I mean, just put the C on the guy's chest right now. Well, you fast forward that to the, about 2 months until March. And ironically, right around the time when all that nonsense happened with the Minnesota Wild, but Lowry was scoring again. He was really leading the way. He was incredibly important in a bunch of crucial wins for the Jets. And at that point, we started talking to people, and it was like, wait a second, maybe Adam is the guy. And here's the thing, and this gets back to the atmosphere, the way this team is built. I'll just say this. When Blake Wheeler was the captain, there was a class system in the Winnipeg Jets locker room. There was a bunch of guys that had been around here for a long time. There's a class
system with the coaching staff.
Exactly. And you knew that Bones did not want to have that. That was probably the biggest reason why they stripped the captaincy of Blake at the beginning of the year. Adam Lowry was always the guy that was the bridge from the guys up here and everybody else. And when you heard players talk about the way he handled that situation, the way he handled and dealt with all of them, it seemed to be the decision. And listen, it keeps looking better and better every day. And that is not to take anything away from Josh Morrissey, because it's almost, I think, better for Josh, because he's able to just focus on being their elite number one defenseman that plays so much each and every day. Still a valued member of the leadership group. But Lowry will do some of that heavy lifting. And there was quite a bit of heavy lifting to do against the Minnesota Wild this weekend.
Well, and that's what I was going to say about Josh. Nobody would deny his meaning to this team. I mean, he's, an incredible leader and voice in that locker room, and obviously presence on the ice. But I think a lot of people, media included, thought that Josh Morrissey kind of was the captain last year because nobody was wearing the C. And then, I'll recall that time in January, that 5-game road trip that started, I believe, in Montreal, if I'm correct. I was on that trip, and it was a tough loss in Montreal. No one really did anything, so you naturally pick who you think is going to be the captain or who leaders in the locker room. And of course, Josh Morrissey was at the top of that list. And during that 5-game road trip, you could feel it weighing on him that it wasn't a great road trip for the Jets. They lost to some teams they shouldn't have lost to, especially given how successful they had been up to that point. And you saw the burden of answering questions afterwards. And I'm not saying that media is the end all be all to be a captain, but it's an important part of the job. It's not just talking to reporters and being that conduit, us being that conduit to fans. It's actually taking accountability for your team's losses. And the reality is players take losses differently. Like, some guys are incredibly tough. They take losses incredibly tough. They wear them. And so there is a burden to not just having to wear a loss. And I'm not suggesting that Josh Morrissey gets in the locker room and he's, kicking stuff and he's totally wearing it, but you could feel that angst in him, answering questions post game. And Adam just seems to kind of just roll with the punches with it. And he always was that. And so if I'm the head coach of this team and I'm picking a captain and I'm trying to evaluate, the burdens of the job and who could handle what and whatever, I'm looking at Adam Lowry, who doesn't have a problem standing in front of microphones after a tough loss and giving a canned answer or a genuine answer, as he often does. Whereas I thought it was tough for Josh after a stretch, to the point where the Jets went as far as to give him a 5-day break leading up to the All-Star break of not talking to media at all. And so, again, I just think that's one of those things that you have to carry. I know fans might roll their eyes and be like, who gives a shit about, the media when it comes to being a captain. But the reality is it's not an easy task to come out and talk on behalf of your team in difficult situations. It's just an added thing to an already tough grind of being an NHL player. And you look at Adam Lowry, and whether you mentioned Huss, and that's what I was alluding to when I said friends with everybody, he is the guy who can step in front of any conflict and, have a stock on both sides of the conversation, have that respect from players on both sides of the conversation. So, I think he does fit the bill, exactly right. And, each team needs something different from their captain. And I think the Winnipeg Jets just desperately needed a guy to bring a loose but competitive attitude to the rink every day, like you see with Adam Lowry. And I think with Blake Wheeler, I don't think there is many more people who are as competitive as Blake Wheeler is, but just the way that, that competitiveness came out of him, I don't think it was as inviting as an environment as you see with number 17 running the show.
Hey, I know we're going to get into this with Mike in just a second, but just on the way out, listen, the wins speak for themselves. I mean, and we'll be talking a lot about the winning the Jets have done lately, but what do you make of some of the nonsense on the weekend between the Jets and the Wild, and like this business of Hartman with that brutal high stick saying, yeah, that was on purpose, and to a mic'd up Cole Perfetti afterwards?
Yeah, listening to Cole talk to to Mike's questions and the reporters there, I thought it was interesting because you can kind of tell, like, he's a little bit flabbergasted by the whole thing, right? But I think he's kind of gained a little bit of the education of old school hockey, right? Like, Hartman didn't go to him and said, tell your teammates that's for this. It was like, hey man, they get it, like you kind of got caught in the crosshairs of the code. And I know fans don't like the code. Personally, I think I like the policing of the game. I don't like what Ryan Hartman did to Cole Perfetti. Don't get me wrong. That's completely ridiculous. There's other ways.
He's targeted Ehlers and Perfetti. Like, I don't know. I was trying to find my copy of the code earlier. It wasn't there. But
I think he's looking at a comparable to Kaprizov, not a comparable to the guy who did something, or to a guy who's comparable to him, right? His size and whatever. But I thought, obviously I'm in the camp that thinks it's a disgusting play, ruthless, needless, like go finish a hit on Cole Perfetti. You know what I mean? Like, why do you need to stick him in the face, take money out of your wallet, which is kind of ridiculous in and of itself when you talk about how many times this guy's been suspended and fined. Like, it's just giving a free pass to a guy. Like, what's $4,700 or whatever it is to a guy, that's not a deterrent whatsoever. So you got to get that kind of crap out of this game. But at the same time, I think there is a lot of policing. I think it brings drama to games. You know what I mean? Like, it brings something more to a game 44 or 43 or whatever in the season, that you wouldn't normally get. So I kind of like the underlying stuff. I think the antics need to be held in check. I think the league needs to take a harder stance on some of these things that happen. But there is certainly a part of me that appreciates the code, that respects the idea of this being a tough, violent game and having consequences to certain things. But I just, I don't necessarily, in this case, certainly with Cole Perfetti, don't agree with how the punishment was doled out, because, you want the game to be, physical, you want the game to be violent in a lot of ways. You also want those key players to be in the game. Cole Perfetti is on the ice is better for this league than off the ice because of some stupid thing you did, Hartman did to him that he didn't even have anything to do with the injury. So it is a lot of nonsense, but at the same time, I think there is something to be said about creating some of that drama for games and seeing how things play out.
Hammer, always great having you on the program. Here's to a great 2024. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, have a great one, guys. Happy New Year and holiday season to all the watchers as well. It's an honor to be your first interview in 2024, and what I'm sure will be many more years to come here, Huss and Remis. So get at it, and we'll see you next week.
Take it easy, pal. Good stuff. There's Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. Jeff's colleague, Mike McIntyre, coming up in just a second with us. Hey, folks, it is, of course, the first week of the new year. And I know many of you are probably working on a few New Year's resolutions, maybe want to get a little healthier. Might I suggest a trip down to Vita Health Fresh Market? You'll find great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. And conveniently, there's 6 Vita Health locations around in town, or you can shop online at myvita.ca and with home delivery options. In particular, when you're thinking about men's health, check out Prairie Naturals, Canada's #1 line of men's health supplements formulated to help the changing needs of a man's body. It'll help you with prostate health, andropause, low libido, testosterone, stress, male energy, and performance. And it's all there at Vita Health, family owned and operated since 1936, also carrying Winnipeg's largest assortment of local products too. A big happy new year to our friends at Wallace & Wallace. Since 1946, they have been the leaders in fencing and overhead doors. You've seen their trucks all around the city, especially in the summer months. But right now, much like, your car is going to be tested over these next few months, that's when your overhead garage door is really going to be tested, because winter puts much more stress on a garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service. Call today for residential and commercial overhead door sales and service. There's only one name or two you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. And hey, as we get into the new year, maybe lose a few pounds and then head on over to F Apparel and get looking great in the menswear department for the upcoming year. Of course, they had some great Boxing Day sales, but the great deals are 12 months a year at F Apparel, because they've got the best prices on the best looking custom suits, starting at just $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. Head on down to 190 Smith Street and get looking good for 2024. Make an appointment and find out more online at EPHapparel.com. And again, visit them downtown at 190 Smith Street. All right. Well, we've got a lot to talk about with Mike. Big game tonight. But I have a feeling we got to pick apart the weekend sweep of the Minnesota Wild and everything coming afterwards in front of the assembled media. Mike McIntyre on the Jets beat for the Winnipeg Free Press joins us now. Mike, Happy New Year to you. How are you?
I'm doing great, Huss. Happy New Year to you and all the viewers and listeners out there. And hey, Happy New Year to us sports writers who had a belated Christmas gift tossed our way this morning. I must say, I did not expect to go to the rink for morning skate. And I figured we might reflect a little bit about what happened between the Jets and the Wild, but I figured most of the focus would be on the Lightning. But of course, Cole Perfetti and his Law and Order style bombshell, cue the gong, the smoking gun, Exhibit A, whatever you want to call it, Mike Gate. maybe it'll come to be known around here. Seems like we have not heard the last of Ryan Hartman, the Minnesota Wild, and the Winnipeg Jets. And before we get into it too much, I suspect folks out there who are maybe debating buying tickets for an upcoming Jets game, you might want to get out and grab a ticket or two for that February 20th game, which happens to be the next time the Jets will meet the Minnesota Wild. Cole Perfetti, by the way, was well aware of the next time the Wild are going to face the Jets.
Oh, I think pretty much everyone in that locker room. Listen, if you've been paying attention to the Winnipeg Jets and watched these games on the weekend, you were looking ahead into the schedule. Okay, when is this team here again? When do these teams play again? And we might have to do a little WST roadie down to the Twin Cities on the 5th or 6th of April, right at the end of the season as we get ready for some playoff hockey, much like many Winnipeggers did on the weekend. Well, Mike, I guess we can maybe work backwards on this because, you've just kind of mentioned what Cole Perfetti said. For people that are maybe just tuning in late, Cole Perfetti was mic'd up for the game on Sunday. And if you've seen right off the high stick, Ryan Hartman with a pretty vicious high stick to the face that cut Cole Perfetti. He had to go back in and get stitches, was missed on the ice. Hartman told him that straight up was retaliation for what happened to Kirill Kaprizov at the hands of Brendan Dillon. The thing that I can't get over, Mike, is that what happened with Dillon and Kaprizov happens 30 times a game on both sides. I mean, listen, I know technically, yes, it is a cross-check, but as I mentioned, that is happening on every shift, pretty much in the National Hockey League. Unfortunate that Kaprizov got hurt. But, to target a player like Perfetti, Rick Bowness said afterwards that they didn't know that he didn't really tell them that until after the game, and the team might have handled things differently. But let me start off with asking you, did NHL player safety know that when they just gave him his 7th fine?
Well, so here's the thing that I've come to learn today, Huss. NHL player safety, they would be aware of the audio, and certainly that Ryan Hartman made it pretty clear that this was no accident. However, under terms of, the collective bargaining agreement in which players agree to be mic'd up, and this is something that's been happening for years. People may say, why are they mic'd up? Well, you've probably seen it on broadcasts. Usually every game, there's a player that's designated as the mic'd up guy. Teams use it for their social media. We've seen in the past the Jets get some great content. Still remember the Evgeny Svechnikov one last year. That might have been the all-timer for a mic'd up player. Svechnikov was a riot. But under terms apparently of the CBA, when players are mic'd up, there is an agreement in place that essentially what you say can't be used against you for disciplinary purposes, which I find really interesting. It would be akin, I guess, and to go to my criminal justice background, it would be like a confession that is obtained and not admissible at the trial, right? Now, usually when that happens, it's because police have been found to breach the rights of an accused. Sorry, we got Piper just popping off here. Usually it's because police have been found to breach the rights. Now, in this case, Cole Perfetti agreed to wear the mic, and maybe most importantly, Ryan Hartman would have known that Cole Perfetti was mic'd up because players on both teams are told ahead of every game who's got the mic, and there's a reason for that. Essentially, it's a warning to players like, hey, you might want to watch it in terms of maybe what's said or done. Now, did Ryan Hartman in the heat of the moment forget? Did he just not care? I don't know the answer to that. But he would have been told before the game. I've seen it myself when we're in the Jets room at a morning skate. It's written on the board for all to see. Players and we, the media, get to see it. Who's wearing the mic that night? So it would have said in the Minnesota dressing room the other day that 91 was mic'd up. But so to answer your original question, Huss, I guess player safety wouldn't have been able to as much as people are saying, my goodness, he's admitting to a premeditated, essentially an assault is what he's admitting to. We can surmise from the way the CBA is written that they wouldn't have been able to use that against him. Now, I have my doubts as to whether they truly didn't use it against him, because the fact they levied a fine, that tells me, as soon as I saw that he was fined, that told me, well, they clearly don't believe that was an accident. They clearly believe it was intentional. How do they know it's intentional? Well, there's audio that would confirm that. So did they kind of use it against him, at least with the fine? Maybe. But for those wondering why there's not harsher punishment, if he's flat out saying on tape, I did that on purpose, the NHL would not be allowed to sort of hold that against him in that sense.
Well, he just got suspended, albeit it was a joke of a 1-game suspension for the cheap shot on Ehlers at the end of last season. He's been suspended again since then.
Yeah.
And this is his 7th fine. But just on that, are you telling me that if some guy was let's do something a little more nefarious,
Bertuzzi Moore-esque, sure.
Well, what about this? What about if some guy dropped a racial slur, a homophobic slur on the ice at a player, and a bunch of guys were pissed off about it, and he just straight up lied. Oh, no, I didn't do that. And, oh, you misheard it, and then the tape is there. They wouldn't be able to use that for some sort of discipline on a player?
Supposedly. Now, is there wiggle room? Is there gray area in that wording? I don't know. I mean, ultimately,
the commissioner will have a final say on that, I'd imagine.
Well, and here's the other thing. And again, I always come back to this when stupid stuff happens on the ice. Where's the NHLPA in all this? We always see the NHLPA stick up for the offender. But it's like they forget they also represent the victim in cases. So in this case, the NHLPA, I assume, would argue, well, no, you can't use that against Ryan Hartman. But the NHLPA also represents Cole Perfetti. And, it just seems like this gets forgotten. And, the David Perron is the most recent example. The NHLPA is fighting tooth and nail for him, kind of overlooking the fact that a guy was, could have been seriously injured on the play as a result. And the Perron play, very different circumstances, but not unlike Perfetti in that Perfetti was also just an innocent bystander. As he pointed out today, he had nothing to do with the Kaprizov injury. I mean, he was just singled out, I guess, because he's, a talented ball forward like Kaprizov, I guess. I just don't understand. Look, I'm all for the code, and I don't mind some of the old school stuff that goes on. To me, Huss, though, like Middleton fights Dillon. Brendan Dillon, he answers the bell as he should. The code says that Brendan Dillon, shouldn't turtle or skate away. He should answer the bell, and he did. Fast forward to Sunday. Adam Lowry, who had nothing to do with the incident, the code says, I guess, Minnesota knows they got to come out, maybe make a statement in front of their fans, set the tone, all that stuff. Adam Lowry doesn't have to accept that fight, but he does, because I think the code says that he should. And good on Adam Lowry, and I've got no issue with that. But at that point, like, how much more now is there unwritten that has to be answered for? And why is Cole Perfetti being forced to answer for something that I think you could make the argument there had already been kind of 2 statements about that whole thing made between Middleton and Maroon? Like, so now there's a third one, and where does it end at that point? I just think, Ryan Hartman, and he's a guy obviously with a history. I just think he took things clearly way too far here. Thankfully for Cole Perfetti, it was only a few stitches. But to go back to your original point, Huss, what if Ryan Hartman had poked his eye out? And then we're talking about, a serious injury, potential lawsuits, all that. And I don't know the answer to your question about whether stuff like that could ultimately be used against you, if it's ironclad or if there's some gray area. The whole thing is just stupid, but it's also pretty darn spicy.
Well, it is. And listen, as angry as a lot of people are in the chat today, over 600 of them right now, you can handle it a little bit better when the team is playing the way they are, and the fact that they brought the brooms out on those guys this weekend. There was any question as to whether the Jets were going to be able to get across the finish line of the month of December in record fashion. They did it in a very impressive way, and it wasn't relying on Balharry and Scheifele and Ehlers. These were full team wins, including the Jets' first sellout, which was another great development for the team and the organization overall, Mike. But I mean, moving away from these particular incidents for a minute, I mean, what a month, what a run this team's on. Today, it's going to be 2 months since they last gave up more than 3 goals, and I will touch wood on that because I know there's a hockey game tonight where they would like to keep that streak going.
It really is remarkable. And if you had, at the start of December, Huss, if you had run a poll and said, I've looked into my crystal ball and it tells me the Jets are only going to lose once in regulation all month. Now take a look at the schedule, folks, and tell me which game is going to be the one they lose in regulation. I'm guessing the San Jose Sharks would not have been at the top of that list. It probably would have been at the bottom of that list. And even that game, the Jets put enough shots and they got goalied for sure. The power play, as it has so many times, kind of came up empty. But yeah, the Jets just, I think Sunday was just the latest in a long list of tests that this team has passed. And Huss, like, the Jets had every reason to be satisfied, if you will. They had already taken the front end of the back-to-back. It had already been a tremendous month, no matter what happened Sunday. And then they fall behind 2-1 early in the third period, right? And you figure, okay, that's probably it. They're content. Move on to the next one. Well, no, they answer right away with a tying goal and then the game-winning goal, and it comes. Both those goals come from unlikely sources, unlikely in the sense that the power play finally gets one. And then Dominic Toninato, who's only in the lineup because 3 other forwards right now are injured. And it just speaks to the depth and what this Jets team has really thrived on, especially over the month of December when, their top scorer, Kyle Connor, has been out. And the Jets really haven't missed a beat without him because they're just getting so many contributions. And they are so stingy. As John Cooper told Kenny Weeb earlier this morning, talking about the Jets, we better not give up more than a few against this team because we know how difficult it is to score against them, just the way they're playing and their commitment. So, yeah, I think what happened against the Wild this past weekend just reinforced why this Jets team is going so well. And I think for maybe the skeptics and the naysayers out there who are looking at previous Jets teams in recent years that started off strong and faded, to me, how these weekend games played out, I think is just further evidence that this is a different team. The style of hockey they're playing is sustainable, and they are all in. And it's infectious the way they're playing. And, now they look to obviously kick off January, just like they finished off December. And they'll face a Lightning team, Huss. I don't know if you saw the reports. Tampa may only be playing with 17 skaters tonight. And if they play 18, no matter what, they're only dressing 5 defensemen. That's all they have on their roster. They are in salary cap hell, and they can't afford to call anyone up right now. They're either playing 13-5 or 12-5. I would suggest the Jets chip some pucks in early and often, and a little ground and pound on the blue liners who are in for a long, long night with only 5 of them dressed.
Yeah, 17 along with Niederreiter in 22 will have a big part of that. Just looking at the chat. Hey, Patty Blue, play your own ball. Take a lap. Mike, as far as this game goes tonight, another opportunity for the Winnipeg Jets to sort of build on what they've been doing night after night after night. And I know you brought up the Sharks game because that was the lone regulation loss. I thought the Jets played a really strong game in that game. They were all over them. At some point, the other guy stands tall and you have a tough time scoring goals. But what is so impressive about this run, including the OT losses to the Habs and Blackhawks, you know what you're getting from the Winnipeg Jets each and every night. I mean, and there's not even a time, and I will include the 17-18 season. I will include last year, the first half. This team has never even been close to as consistent with what they're doing as they are right now. And, listen, if you're consistently good, that's a very good thing. Rick Bowness has got to be really pleased right now. And I imagine the biggest challenge for the coaching staff right now is just trying to keep this thing going right now. But I will say the identity of this team, as it's been formed throughout the year, is that they're not resting on their laurels. And I thought the third period, as you kind of brought up, the third period, battling back to win that game in regulation the way it was, no one would have said a damn thing if they lost that game to Minnesota, considering that the month that they'd had. But they're not settling for anything right now, and it can't help but be very exciting for Winnipeg Jet fans as they look ahead to this game tonight, the upcoming road trip, and then 4 more games at home starting next week.
Yeah, and there's a lot of excitement around the Jets team, naturally so. You see it at their morning skates. You see it at their practices. And I'll say this, Huss, there's a lot of joy right now because the dads are in town. The dads and the mentors, they're joining the Jets on the road tomorrow for the, I'd say annual, but they don't do it every single year. But they've done several of these dads. They did a mom's trip as well. So no doubt the boys will want to show the old man that they're playing well. And so I suspect a lot of the dads will be here already tonight to see the game, and then they'll join the team on the charter bright and early tomorrow as they head south west, and they'll get a nice round of golf in on Saturday. They'll get to see 3 games in 4 days, and so the Jets have every reason to just try and keep the good times going. I think at this point it's a point of pride that this team isn't taking its foot off the gas. They don't want, they're as I said, they're holding each other accountable. You look at the leadership, guy like Adam Lowry, right, as I said, right off the hop the other day, answers the bell with Pat Maroon. And then Adam Lowry scores a big first goal to get the Jets back in that game after they gave up the opening goal. Nino Niederreiter, this is a guy, yet another tremendous weekend. I know he doesn't get an assist on the Toninato goal, but he makes a great play on the entry. And look at that engagement in the third period, him and Zach Bogosian. And I think this is why the Jets are really making a lot of people notice how they're playing. They're not getting pushed around. Niederreiter goes sort of like a Swiss missile at Zach Bogosian there with a big reverse hit. And every player feels bigger, right, when you got guys playing that style of hockey. And it's certainly impressive to watch. I'm looking forward to tonight, Huss. As you mentioned, the last 2 home games, Boston just before the Christmas break, and then Minnesota on the weekend. 2 of the best, if not the best, atmospheres all season down at Canada Life Center. Also the 2 biggest crowds. The Jets are playing the kind of hockey that are obviously getting the fans excited. And, I think the Jets are rewarding their fans and vice versa. And it really feels in a lot of ways like old times in terms of the atmosphere at the rink.
Well, for sure. I mean, we know as an organization, there's a lot of work to do. I have a feeling like some of these Tuesday games, over the course of homestands still won't be where they want them to be. But I do sincerely hope they've got some people in that office right now working on picking up the phones and talking to some local companies about getting on board with season tickets, because right now is the time to do it. This is this team has done everything they possibly could to make believers out of fans, to win people back that maybe had been turned off for whatever reason. And they've been doing it night in and night out. And we hope that they'll be able to continue doing it again tonight. No, you mentioned Nino Niederreiter. I did want to bring him up. What a player he is. What an acquisition. The fact that he's re-signed is another great thing moving forward for the Winnipeg Jets. But honestly, Mike, I mean, the stars of the weekend outside of Nino, were fourth liners. And the Dominic Toninato story is so interesting. He was sort of a complete afterthought. And one of the other signatures of great teams is that when they lose players, that guys will come in and rise to the occasion. And I mean, right now the team is playing without Kyle Connor, without Rasmus Kupari, and without David Gustafsson, who are all on that opening day lineup. Axel Jonsson-Fjällby has been phenomenal in his role. And Toninato is just the latest to do it. And as Rick Bowness pointed out after the game in the Twin Cities, he's a point-a-game player right now. And I'm not sure that lasts. But, man, between scoring that goal and then getting the nod from the coach to be out there in that final minute, making a big shot block, competition truly does bring out the best in everyone. And I would point to the blue line because I think everybody knew that there was a ton of competition coming in. It looked like Ville Heinola had won that spot at the start of the year. He unfortunately got injured. And, you know, Nate Schmidt and Dylan Sandberg have been the number one pairing in the league all season long when it's come to goals against and expected goals against. And who thought Neil Pionk would be part of a pairing that was also on that list this year? And then you combine what Morrissey and DeMello were doing. Like, I mean, they are giving the coaches the toughest decisions in a good way because there is nobody on this team that's playing their way out of the lineup right now.
No, and I'm sure Rick Bowness was probably trying to find ways to kind of continue. We saw that little rotation happening with Schmidt and Stanley and Chisholm. The problem is right now is that Nate Schmidt, you know, he's playing really well. That pairing's playing so well. The team's playing so well. You're not going to make a change just for the sake of making a change at this point. And, you know, it goes to the old saying, if it ain't broke, well, it's not broke. So the Jets aren't trying to fix anything at this stage. And as guys get healthy now, if other guys don't go down with injuries and this team keeps playing the way it is, yeah, there's going to be a major roster crunch. But, you know, credit to guys who are getting opportunities like Toninato, like Jonsson-Fjällby, who are absolutely making the most of them. And that fourth line, you know, has been terrific. I thought they were leading the way in a lot of ways over the weekend, as was the Lowry line. And to your point on Nino Niederreiter, I was saying this to a few colleagues the other day, Huss, like, I still don't understand why the Nashville Predators unloaded him for just a second-round draft pick. He was under contract, not just for the rest of last year, but for one more year at 4. Everything we've heard about Nashville, and they brought in, you know, Ryan O'Reilly and Luke Shen this offseason because they bought out Johansson and got rid of Duchesne. They were trying to change the culture. Everything we know about Nino Niederreiter is he is absolutely the kind of player who raises the culture in a room, who you want to build around. Now, even if the Predators thought that they weren't going to re-sign him beyond this current year, the fact they traded him to a division rival like the Jets, they did it ahead of the trade deadline last year. So it's not like they waited to the last minute and maybe circled back on teams that got more desperate because maybe they missed out. It almost felt like the Predators did the Jets a favor, which didn't make much sense and still doesn't make much sense. And, you know, I think the deal and then re-signing Niederreiter at 3 more years, but with no change in his AAV, the same $4 million, which the Jets can certainly handle without any problem because the cap's even going up. So it's less of a percentage of the cap going forward. All the guy does is just consistently produce. You know, you can mark him down for 25 goals and 50 plus points. The physicality, the net front presence, the leadership, like the guy checks off so many boxes, and the Jets truly are lucky to have him. And, you know, normally a pre-deadline deal for a guy in exchange for a second-round draft pick would probably not appear on a GM's list at the end of his tenure as one of the best moves they ever made. But I think in this case, this will go down as one of Kevin Cheveldayoff's finest moves.
There's no doubt about that. I'm speaking of the injury situation. Kyle Connor sighting on Saturday morning at Canada Life Center. What are you hearing about KFC as well as Ville Heinola?
Well, so I think with Kyle
and Kupari.
Yeah, and Kyle Connor, I believe we're now 3 weeks, 2 days since he went down there in Anaheim, 23 days since the injury. So the timeline was 6 to 8. Everything I think we're hearing about Kyle Connor would suggest that he's probably on the early end of that timeline, but I don't believe the timeline has accelerated at all. That is to say, I wouldn't expect to see Kyle Connor back before we hit the 6-week mark, but it may be closer to 6 weeks rather than 8. Now, I guess adding to the intrigue there is the Jets have about a full week off in that 6 to 8 week range, because they'll hit they have the All-Star break and the players break in there. And if the Jets are going well, and do you almost err on the side where you wouldn't rush him back? Maybe it ends up being closer to 8 weeks once you factor in the break and all that. But it is great news for sure that he's skating, Huss, because go back to Gabe Vilardi, who was a 4 to 6 week timeline. Gabe Vilardi ended up being 6 weeks and a couple days. And Gabe Vilardi, it took him longer to get back on the ice, even with a shorter timeline than Kyle Connor, than it's taken Kyle Connor to get back. Now, they're different injuries, slightly different injuries, but the 6 to 8 would suggest that Kyle Connor's was more serious than Vilardi's, and yet here's Kyle Connor back on the ice quicker than Vilardi. So maybe the long and the short of what I'm saying is, when Kyle Connor's back, the hope is that he's got enough time skating that, we saw Gabe Vilardi, he admitted that first week or so back was really tough for him. Maybe Kyle Connor can kind of hit the ground running, because he'll have a little more runway, if you will, to build himself up for a return that, as I say, the Jets have certainly held the fort down and then some in his absence.
Well, and I mean, I was just looking at the calendar here, and that injury was 3 weeks ago Sunday.
Yeah.
So we're just getting, like, he was skating before it was even at the 3
midway
weeks.
Mark. Sure.
And if that is the case, I mean, I guess we'll see how things go over the next couple of weeks. I mean, the good thing is they're certainly not in a position to rush him back. They don't have that need, but the sooner Kyle Connor can get back in the lineup, the better. As far as the Finns, Billy in and around, I would imagine that he's going to get some time to play with the Manitoba Moose. Might the same thing happen with Rasmus Kupari on a conditioning stint?
Yeah, the only difference is Kupari would have to agree, I believe, on the conditioning stint. But in the case of both guys, like, the Jets have no time to practice here over the next week just because of their schedule. Like, they're playing
busy.
They're playing 5 and 7, which you almost never see at the NHL level. Starting this past Saturday, they played Saturday, Sunday, tonight, Thursday, Friday. 5 and 7 is basically unheard of, and it's going to be 6 and 9 because they play on Sunday, and it's going to be 7 and 11 because they play again next Tuesday.
They don't have 2 days off. They don't have 2 days off until the 14th and 15th of January.
Right. So the Jets will, I believe, the 10th, next Wednesday, will be their next practice. That's going to make it difficult for Kupari, especially, I think, to work his way back in. And again, when you look at how well the fourth line's going, even if Kupari was ready today, Huss, like, who are you taking out given how well that fourth line's playing? He may have to just patiently wait his turn in any event because of how well things are going. So, yeah, maybe he agrees to go get a game or two in with the Moose. That would certainly be ideal. The other thing is the Jets can just straight send him. Forget about conditioning stint. He doesn't require waivers, I believe. And as someone who doesn't, and Ville Heinola doesn't either, right? So would you just straight send? Because don't forget, when you're using a conditioning assignment like they did with Declan Chisholm, you still have to account for it on your cap, and you still have to, he's still part of your 23-man roster. And so depending on, the flexibility that the team maybe wants, would you just straight send, say, Ville to the Manitoba Moose, as opposed to on a conditioning assignment, just send him to the Moose, with the idea being that he's going to go there to get his conditioning in? We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, both guys were in regular sweaters today. So certainly they're getting a lot closer in terms of taking contact and ramping things up.
Well, I had said, I had said last week that we'd put a WST moratorium on talking about for the remainder of 2023 as to what are the lines going to be when Kyle Connor comes back? What about the defense when Ville Heinola is ready to go? It's 2024, so now all that stuff's back on the table. But like I've said beforehand, let me know when the guys are ready.
Yeah.
And we'll see what the situation is because things can change. But for the time being, and specifically to Ville's situation, it really does suck for him.
Yes.
But you have a hard time making an argument right now to do anything with that blue line, considering the results that this team is getting night in and night out. That being said, at some point, they're going to want to have the young man in the lineup and play and see if he can do what he did that apparently won him the job going into that final preseason game against the Sens.
Yeah, and it's, one of the storylines for sure of the Jets season. Yet they've had a few injuries up front for sure. But in terms of on the blue line, they have stayed, other than Ville's injury right off the hop in camp during the regular season. And, the Jets are blocking a lot of shots. They're playing physical. It's almost been remarkable that this team has, on the back end, has managed to stay as healthy as it has. And as you say, knock on wood that continues here going forward.
Mike, great stuff as always. Did you have a good New Year's though? Did you, were you in the Twin Cities and had to make it back or?
No, was not in the Twin Cities. It's actually my wife is a December 31st New Year's Eve baby. So, stayed home, here in the Peg, had a nice family, gathering, for her birthday and, rang in the new year with her and the kids and the pups. And, it was just such a short shot down to I know a lot of Winnipeggers certainly made the trip. Tough day though, if you're a Minnesota sports fan to your Wild get swept and then your Vikings, not your personally, the Vikings, but if you're a fan, they're your Vikings get annihilated. That certainly stung, I'm sure, for Minnesota sports fans to end the year the way it did. But
well, like I said to Remis earlier on, I mean, there's a lot of those Jet fans that were probably leaving the building, throwing a purple jersey on and going down to the thing. But if you weren't a big Viking fan, considering what happened with Hartman and all that, there was ever a time to take a little more joy in the result of another non-related game to the National Hockey League. That would have been it with the Packers just sticking it to the Vikings to ring in 2024 and end their season. Is Piper around? Needless to say, there's been people want to ring in 2024 by saying hello to Piper.
Let's see if we can get her over here. Come here, Piper.
For you podcast listeners, this is there's Piper for you folks.
This is her. She just loves this. This was one of her Christmas gifts. And she is
Piper emojis in the chat, everybody.
Yeah. He is obsessed with the bone. She's a little wired for sound right now. She's fired up. All the Ryan Hartman talk has got her fired up. But yeah, there you go, folks. Piper wishes you a happy new year.
Could not have been more fired up than Remis before this show about all this Ryan Hartman stuff. Mike, happy new year to you and yours. Great stuff. And hopefully we'll be talking about this hockey team long beyond the end of 82. But this is going to be an interesting few weeks with all the other stories around the club. And again, a big road trip with some more wins seemingly on the table after this game against the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. Thanks so much for doing this.
You bet. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the week, folks.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. There is Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. All right. We're going to hear more from Cole Perfetti and Bones. So do not go anywhere, folks. But I do want to thank our friends at Royal Sports for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk, Manitoba's #1 sports superstore with the biggest and best selection of licensed team gear featuring the Winnipeg Jets with literally thousands of pieces of Jets merchandise, including many exclusives you won't find anywhere else. All the jerseys customized with your favorite players' name and number. Bomber gear, NFL just in time for the playoffs. And maybe you Raptor fans want to get an RJ Barrett jersey. I saw you and Vivian mentioning that big trade on the weekend. Yeah, the Canadian coming home to the Raptors. Regardless of what your team is, Royal Sports got it. Not to mention being the undisputed hockey heavyweights in town, is the #1 hockey store for over 40 years, family owned. It's Royal Sports 750 Pembina. And do follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And hey, a big shout out to the gang down at Boston Pizza. Last night, there was no Monday Night Football. And that first night of no Monday Night Football is always a tough one. You realize how close we are to the end of the regular season of the National Football League and close to the playoffs. But we do have one more big slate of games on the weekend. But in between, there's no better place to watch your Winnipeg Jets outside of Canada Life Center than your local Boston Pizza. We got some late ones Thursday and Friday. Might be a great time to get together with the gang at your local BP. Enjoy those ice-cold schooners, world-famous BP wings, and gourmet pizzas and more at your local Boston Pizza. You can always get it hot and fast to your door as well by ordering at bostonpizza.com. And hey, a big shout out to our friends at Little Brown Jug as well. I did enjoy a couple of generic lagers at the game on the weekend, and heading into New Year's. And of course, Little Brown Jug, now an official partner of the Winnipeg Jets and the Bombers for that matter. 1919 and generic available at Craft Beer Corner, section 310 upstairs, 126 downstairs. Get the best in Winnipeg's local beer at Jet games now with Little Brown Jug. And don't forget, generic on sale now at your local vendor, wherever that sells great beer. $19.99 for the tall boy 8-packs of Little Brown Jug generic. All right, let's get Remis in here again. And Reem, what a show to kick off 2024 here. Well over 600 for a good portion of our chat with Mike, and tons of likes. Although, if you haven't hit the thumbs up already, folks, would love to see us get up to 300 with about 600 people in here. It's literally the easiest thing you can do. Just hit that thumbs up button and help us spread the channel.
Yeah, exactly. Tells YouTube, hey, we're putting out some pretty good content here, and maybe it'll show it to some people who don't know what we're doing. I saw one person in here saying, hey, this is great. I'm at work doing nothing, watching you guys. And I was like, hey, we're here every day at 1. You can come any day. So this is awesome. Great start to 2024. We had the Bones year in review. Check that on our channel. The Jets Weekly with Connor. That's on our channel too. And now today, talking about Jets Wild. And there is a game tonight at Canada Life Center against Tampa. But, we weren't on the weekend. So, and we did have that news today about the fine for Ryan Hartman. And then Cole Perfetti coming out and saying he told me he was going to slash me in the face. And he did. And I think we should congratulate Ryan Hartman, Huss, for the precision that he used hitting Cole Perfetti and only giving him 2 stitches on the lip. As Cole said, it could have been worse. He could have had a concussion. Could have been anything else. He could have sticked him in the eye and poked it out. He could have done anything, but he was just so skilled with that stick, slicing him. Only 2 stitches. Morgan Barron got caught with the skate in the playoffs. He did, 90 stitches? So I think Ryan Hartman, we're not giving him enough credit for giving, just the appropriate punishment for being on the team that injured Kirill Kaprizov, right?
It's a great point. I mean, we don't talk enough, or maybe we get spoiled by the skill level in the National Hockey League today. And Ryan Hartman has a rat level of 10, and definitely put those skills to use in that high stick to Cole Perfetti's face that he owned it a little later on. I mean, as I say, we could talk about this for hours right now. And you know what? Let me put the why not question of the day out to folks right now. How should the Jets go about handling this on the 20th of February? I'm sure there'll be many varying opinions. I am not of the opinion that they just go out and basically pull a Wild and take cheap shots at the skilled position players on Minnesota. But I do wonder how this progresses between these two teams, because as Mike said, Cole Perfetti's well aware of February 20th. And I wasn't sure whether someone would take a run at Ryan Hartman. I'll be honest, I was in the stands. I was sort of hoping to see something go at Hartman on the weekend in the game here in Winnipeg. That didn't happen. The Jets focused on winning the hockey game. But the minute Kaprizov got hurt on what was, as I mentioned, a very innocuous cross-check on the boards that happens 30 times a game, they were spitting blood and going back to the old wild playbook of cheap-shotting star players on the other team. So, listen, is it unfortunate that Kaprizov got hurt? Yeah, it is, for sure. And it was unfortunate with what happened with him and Logan Stanley last year. But I don't think anyone could, look at either of those plays and think that those were deliberate attempts to injure. Both of the Ryan Hartman plays were clearly attempts to injure, and frankly, that's why this guy has now been fined 7 times by NHL Players Safety and suspended, I believe, 3 times. And it should have been a suspension this time, if for no other reason to show that they're actually serious about dealing with this stuff more than the joke invoices that get sent out because of the agreement between the NHL and the NHLPA. But why don't we get to the rest of this Perfetti, because there is some good stuff from today, and we played that clip just to kind of get things going in. We will get to Canada and the World Junior and a farewell for our great friend Dennis Bayak. But here's Perfetti. I'll tell you what, let's go with number 2. Right off the bat, this is kind of where it started. Perfetti's reaction to the fine after the morning skate today.
Yeah, I mean, glad player safety there, and the league stepped in and did something about that. It didn't feel nice. It was obviously, he knew what he was doing, and hockey happens. It happens fast, and the refs. It's tough to get that off the draw. It's quick. Everything happens so quickly, but I'm glad the league looked after, and I wasn't expecting anything major like a suspension, but it's nice to just see there's a little bit of repercussions for that. So yeah, it was good. Face was pretty sore, but it's all good now.
Yeah, it just speaks to the level of confidence that players have in player safety, that there was no expectation whatsoever of anything that would be done. And the fine seems like a bonus. Here's Perfetti with a little bit more reaction to the weekend and the incident.
Nothing against him. Like, he's obviously a good hockey player, plays in the NHL, and he has a role in this league and on his team. And obviously we have a good rivalry with them, and it's chippy both ways. And he's obviously got a history with our team and doing a couple things. And nothing against him. He's got a role to fill, and it sucks when guys get hurt. I mean, he sent fly out last year for a couple weeks, and luckily mine wasn't too bad, and didn't lose any teeth or anything. It was just a couple stitches, and that was it. But it sucks when guys are getting hurt on purpose. It's that part's frustrating, but I understand everything. Game happens fast, and there's a role for everything, and they weren't happy with what happened the day before, and he tried to take exceptions into his own hand. That's what he decided to do. He got fined for it, so it's out of my hands now, and we'll move on. We'll see him in whenever we play him again later down the road, and we got the last laugh winning both games there, so I'm not too worried about it.
There you go. That says it all. The last laugh, putting the foot on the throat of the Minnesota Wild, winning both games on the weekend, extending their lead on the Wild to 12 points in the Central Division heading into the new year. Now, we played some of this earlier on. We'll give you this full clip right now, especially for folks that maybe joined a little later on. What we were talking to Mike about, which came about today in this conversation, was that Hartman told Cole Perfetti flat out that what happened to Kaprizov at the hands of Brendan Dillon on Saturday was the reason why he high-sticked him in the face. Here's Perfetti on Hartman making his intentions quite clear.
He made it pretty obvious. He did it he said it in kind of a respectful way. He said, no disrespect, nothing against you, just, it had to happen. Something had to happen against, what happened to Kaprizov there. He's obviously going to be out for a little bit, and, I don't think Dilly was trying to hurt him. I think he was just playing heavy, and that's just, that play happens. He wasn't, I don't think, trying to be a bad guy. I think he was just, that's what he thought he needed to do to get back at us. And that's what he chose to do. And, I was saying to a couple of guys, lucky it wasn't like a cheap shot hit or a, from behind or to the head or something that could have been serious. Luckily, it was just a couple stitches. And, kind of a weird thing to come out and admit it, that, he blatantly said that, it was for what happened. Well, I didn't even do anything in the play. I had nothing to do with it. And, hey, whatever. It's all good.
All right, so there's Cole Perfetti. And, as I said, taking the high road, last laugh for the Jets. But still, I don't know how the refs missed that. Here's what Cole Perfetti had to say on there being no call on the play on the ice after the incident.
I did ask the refs about it. They said it's tough off the draw, like, because, you know, you're battling, like, for the face-off, trying to lift sticks and stuff. It's sometimes tough to, you know, high sticks don't really get called off face-offs because of, you know, it's flying around. Yeah. And to be fair, like, in game speed on the ice level, I'm sure that looked like he's trying to lift my stick and just missed and caught me. But, you know, when you watch the video, it's pretty obvious that the puck was nowhere near. My stick was up in the air and his stick was up in the, you know, and he just decided to come up with it. But, yeah, I asked the rest about it. There's nothing they could really do. And after the fact, I mean, you know, missed calls happen. That's part of the game. Games happens fast. And especially on the draw like that when we're both fighting for the puck, like, there's nothing the refs could really do there. So, sucks we didn't get a power play out of it, but at the same time, there's nothing the refs could do there. It's a tough call.
All right, so there's Cole. No worse for wear. A couple stitches, still pretty, and still in the lineup for the Jets tonight when they take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. One more from Perfetti. Here's just Cole on how he happened to be mic'd up for this game.
You were mic'd up too, right?
I was, yes. So we caught it all.
We got
the whole combo.
If this went to a court, you got the smoking
Yeah, he
gun.
wouldn't be doing. They wouldn't have much. They. I was mic'd up, so I don't know if he realized that or not. I mean, they're supposed to get notified, but to come out and blatantly say it to the mic, it worked out in our favor.
All right, so there's everything from Cole Perfetti today. You know, Rick Bowness spoke quickly after the game on Sunday, but here's just one quickie from Bones on Sunday on the atmosphere in Minnesota and his team's reaction to, and performance in getting another big win.
What do you think of that? I love the atmosphere in both rinks. Well, I always love the atmosphere here. I love coming in here. There's one of the best rinks in the league to play because of the atmosphere. They've got great fans, and they're a good, hard-working team. So going into both games, you know it was going to be a hard-fought battle. There wasn't much room out there. It's kind of a low-event game for a while. But that's the way both teams played. But John's got these guys playing really, really hard. They're tough to play against.
All right, there is Bones. We'll have just a couple clips from Bones from today in a minute. Loving the chat, though, right now. There is plenty. A BA split. Maybe Dylan can take a face-off on the 20th of February. See how things go. I mean, that's I think, what it turns people off, the way, just the way that this whole thing has been handled. Is that, I mean, right after the Kaprizov incident, Middleton, their biggest dude, goes after Brendan Dillon. He's fair game. He throws down with him. The following game, off the opening faceoff, 2 seconds into the game, Adam Lowry, the captain of the Winnipeg Jets, has to accept the invitation of Pat Maroon. And then that happened, like, I would suggest, I don't know the exact time in the game when Cole went out, but I believe that was his first shift of the game. So, I mean, there is some credit to be given to the Winnipeg Jets. And I know there's a lot of people that will be maybe a little more bloodthirsty than others that say whatever about the game. Go out and, don't let that happen to your players. But as you can see from Cole Perfetti speaking today, they can hack it. They know that it's a tough game. And as Cole just mentioned, Remis, they got the last laugh with those 2 wins right now. And, listen, the Wild are going into a game tonight against the Calgary Flames. We'll get to the cool bet lines in a minute. Without Gustafsson, who's now week to week. Without Kaprizov, who's out week to week, which is sort of crazy. I mean, like, I don't want to diminish anybody's injury. But for a play, as I've mentioned, happens 25, 30 times a game. I don't know whether he just got him in a really sensitive or vulnerable spot or what the story was, but it is a little surprising that he's out. But, man, that's a huge loss. They're already without Zuccarello right now. They're going to be taking on a desperate team again in the Calgary Flames tonight. And as we all know, I mean, you look at the standings right now. Vegas, LA, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Colorado, Dallas have all really established themselves in the divisional playoff spot. So a game like this tonight for the Wild and the Flames, is hugely important when you think about the teams that are battling right now to be in one of those 2 wildcard spots.
Yeah, sorry, just getting those bones clipped right now. I can't go back to Perfetti. Can you believe how calm this guy was and be like, yeah, it's just a normal hockey play, a guy taking a stick and two-handing you in the face off a face-off. Stuff happens, guys. The refs, like, they're doing their best out there. They're going to miss stuff. It's fine. And, like, I can't believe I would be, like, dropping F-bombs, like, this guy's so composed. He's like, hey, I'm having a great season. We're battling for first place. It could be worse. And to be fair, yeah, he only got, like 2 stitches. It's not, the 80 that Barron had.
Yeah.
So again, it could be way worse. Like didn't go under the visor. It's just great skill not to go under the visor. It's just a love tap by Hartman on the lip for being on the team that injured Kaprizov. And a hockey play, at least Kaprizov, he had the puck when he got injured when Logan Stanley sat on him or when Brendan Dillon. It's not like Hartman, when he's going out finding guys who don't have the puck. Pretty easy pickings there, hitting guys who aren't suspecting of being hit. So as far as the Central, what are we talking about? Central Division wild card? It's going to be interesting who gets in there.
I'm just saying this game tonight for the Wild, the depleted Wild, going up against Calgary. I mean, that's a massive game between 2 teams that are battling for one of those wild card spots because now I know things can change, but it certainly looked like there's a pretty big gap in both divisions between the 3 top teams and the teams battling for wildcard spots, which makes this game tonight for both Calgary and Minnesota a huge one on the schedule, even though we're just kicking off the new year.
Yeah, sure. Let's take a look at the standings here. Nashville, top of the wild card right now. They've played more games than everyone, though. Arizona, I'm curious what happens to them. They're an exciting team. We're going to get another look at them. And there's Seattle, who had this magical season last year. They're 7-1-2. They won, shut out Vegas in the Winter Classic yesterday. I'm curious what happens with them. I think they take a bit of a step back, but maybe they can squeak in. I guess Edmonton seems to be surging. They're my pick to get one of those spots. They're playing well. So Minnesota, I think they're done. This sunk them. They lost their best player in Kaprizov. They lost their goalie. Marc-Andre Fleury is going to be starting. Too bad for them, I guess. A bunch of great guys on the Minnesota Wild, and hopefully for them they can get in. Marcus Foligno, just a plus human. Just Ryan Hartman too, just a bunch of great guys. Pat Maroon, great guy. So it sucks that such great humans won't be, having that shot to play for the Stanley Cup this year on a team, that just has had so much struggles, getting out of the first round. I don't know, since 2003.
Well, maybe the Jets will help them not even see the first round tonight. And Calgary can do that as well tonight. Just on that, I mean, Minnesota's 1 game up on 500 after getting back-to-back losses at the hands of the Jets on the weekend. The Flames are 1 game under 500, 35 and 36 points. Edmonton is 3 games over 500. So they, of the teams that are outside of the wild card, have the best record in the number of games that they played. But Arizona's 5 games up on 500, and Nashville is 4 right now. But the Oilers have won 5 in a row right now. They kind of had that 8-game heater. They lost 3 in a row. Now they're back winning. But these should be 2 desperate teams tonight. And St. Louis is in the middle right there at 18 and 17. All right, listen, we're going to get to – there's a bunch of games tonight. We also got to talk Little World Juniors. But just as we finish off kind of all this Jet stuff, let's hear from Bones because the team is back at it. Don't forget the Best of Bones 2023, an enjoyable video for you available on YouTube. When you're finished Winnipeg Sports Talk, go give that a look. But Bones talked about the challenge tonight as the Jets look to open 2024 the way they finished off 2023, and that's winning against a Tampa Bay Lightning team that, is a very, very good squad, tons of star power, but in a weird spot roster-wise, as Mike McIntyre laid out earlier.
Yeah, well, they're a great team over there. Clearly, we win the Stanley Cup a couple of years back-to-back, and 3 years. They're a great team. They've got some elite players, elite goalie, elite forwards, elite defensemen. They're a great hockey team. So when we have nothing but respect for them. Obviously, Coop does a great job with them. So you've got to be ready when you play these elite teams, and that's on us to make sure we are.
All right. Bones also gave a little injury update on Rasmus Kupari and Ville Heinola, who are out there today.
They're getting closer. That's all that means. And there wasn't going to be any contact out there in morning skate. Had there been a contact drills, Ville probably would have been in the no contact jersey, but Coop is ready for the battles. The problem we're facing now is the schedule and the travel, and there's no practice time. So what we have to do with both of them is get them out there and do as much as we can in the morning skates.
Yeah, I mean, did you expect Kupari maybe back on the road trip, or do you got to wait until maybe the 10th? I think is your next practice potentially.
Yeah, so again, we'll just have to see. We're gonna have an optional here tomorrow morning, and we'll work him again. We'll work him again on Thursday, and it's day to day, and we'll see how he handles it all.
And Gus wasn't out there. Is he? What's the timeline on him now? Is it?
He wasn't out there today, so I don't know.
No,
it's a few more days clearly before he even skates. So
to clarify on him, did he get hurt in the morning skate in Chicago? He was on the ice in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
And so was it something, he tweaked something during that?
No, he just kind of felt it. From the game before. So, and he tried a couple of movements, and he felt it. So there's no need to play him. We're not going to play an injured player and risk it going further.
Remo, one thing very clear about that is Rick Bowness isn't too stressed about this all, because he's got a lineup right now that is doing it night in and night out. And if anything, the stress is going to come from having to make some tough decisions when some of these guys need to get back into the lineup, or they feel they need to get them back into the lineup, and making those tough decisions like a guy we'll hear about from Bones in just a minute.
Yeah, it's really been crazy just how much the lines have stayed the same this year. Usually, they're breaking out the blender, they're switching stuff up, but I mean, it's just the same that it's always been.
We don't even talk about them anymore because everyone knows.
We haven't even mentioned the lines today. It's just the same. Ehlers, Scheifele, Velarde, Perfetti, Nemesnikov, Iafallo, Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton, Barron, Toninato, and Axel. And defense, Morsey, DeMello, Dillon, Pionk, Sandberg, Schmidt. And we haven't had any changes at all. There's been nothing to update. There's no speculation. There's maybe a bit when Velarde came back and then Connor got hurt, but those are the two things, and it's been the same, and they've just been rolling and rolling over everyone to the tune of 10-1-2 in December. So no reason to change anything, and I kind of agree. I don't really want to. I mean, it's fun to speculate online, but they're playing so well. Why do we? We'll worry about the lineup changes when they need to happen, and maybe someone will be hurt then. Maybe something different will happen, but those guys are working their way back, and I think they can take their time and come back when they're 100% ready. Because as Rick Bowness said, they don't want to play injured players. These guys are rolling, and one guy who stepped in over the last couple of games is Dominic Toninato, who's point per game player this year, as we've mentioned a couple times today.
Well, hey, you listen, Bones gave him the props, and very deservedly so after the game in Minnesota on New Year's Eve. Connor gave him the props, and the Jets this week is the third star and the hardest working player. And Rick Bowness talked a little bit about Dominic Toninato and what he has contributed since returning to the lineup earlier this morning.
Listen, he's a strong organizational player. He is, and that's why we wanted him back in the organization. He never complains when he gets sent down, and he's one of the hardest workers, and he's a great role model for all the young players when he's playing for the Manitoba Moose. But he's an experienced guy. He knows how to play, and he knows how to stay within his game. He knows what he's good at, and he stays within that game. He plays to his strengths. He's reliable. We had him on the ice at the end of the game because he had won a lot of face-offs. We wanted to send him out there. He blocked a big shot, so he's doing all the little things that line needs to do, and it's huge that he gets that goal. He could have won the game in Chicago. He hits the post with five minutes to go, right? So he's had his opportunities.
How do players do that? The knowing your strengths, but also maybe knowing your limitations. Is that a good quality?
He knows what he has to do to help this team win. Play his game. That's why he's here. We don't expect him to try to do too much out there. Just this is what you do well to help us win, and the team comes first, and the winning is all that matters. And he buys into that every time he comes up.
All right, so there's Rick Bowness from this morning. Now we do have one more Bones clip, and this is not related to the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. We're taking it back to last year. Had to get a comment from Rick Bowness on the high stick for Cole Perfetti. Do we have that one, number 7?
Yeah, sorry, you just said last year. You mean last game?
Well, I mean last year. It was December 31st, 2023.
Oh, Come on. Sure. Okay. I was like, what? Do I have the wrong clip here? We're going back to the Hartman hit on Ehlers. Sorry, there's just such a history between these two teams. Yeah,
just
last
having
year.
some fun with the turn of the calendar.
You got
like way back then.
You got me. I thought that I had the wrong clip or I wrote something wrong in the notes.
No. You're doing a great job. I didn't mean to screw you up like that.
I got my Garmin watch on. You can see my heart rate jump up there, being like, "What? Did I screw up?" Hey, you're just having fun.
This is Bones on the high stick in Minnesota.
Yeah, the penalty would have been nice. Yeah, when you sit there and you get caught on saying something like that, the league is well aware of what happened and why it happened, and that's how they dealt with it. That decision was made by the league. I wasn't part of the conversation. It wasn't part. They didn't ask me my opinion on it, but that's how the league wants to deal with things like that, and that's what they do.
It's a little old school, isn't it? In terms of we don't see that maybe in the modern NHL. Kind of the eye for an eye.
No, that's a little old school, and it would have been, if that conversation had taken place and everyone else was well aware of it at the time, that would have been dealt with in a different way as well.
Oh, there's Bones. And, what else is he going to say? But I will say this, Remo, that you can tell that those wins over Minnesota were incredibly important to Bones. And let's face it, if they weren't able to win that game, I think the vibe might have been a little different around the morning skate today. But the way Cole Perfetti handled it was quite admirable. And Rick Bowness knows his team is in another area code right now than the Minnesota Wild, and they'll have a chance to see them later on. And as we mentioned before, February 20th will be circled on many a calendar amongst Jet fans.
Yeah, already looking at securing tickets. I'm making plans to be in the building for that one. Thinking about just what kind of human you have to be to stick a guy in the face like that off a face-off. Just gets me very upset, Hustler. I would never do something like that. No. But hey, it's the NHL. You can do, I guess, stick a guy in the face, get a $4,000 fine, nicely done, and. There's a comment from Rick Bowness. So, look, they're focused on winning. They're not stooping to that level, and they're battling for the division and thinking about, hey, getting that banner that they should have got in the 2018-19 season. And it would be pretty nice to see Canada Life Center. But first up, you got Tampa tonight and the upcoming road trip. Nice dad's trip, as we heard from Mike. So exciting times in Jets lands as you mentioned, the calendar turned and we're in 2024 now, and not 2023.
Well, and you know what? I mean, listen, it's always great, and I'm always the first one to mention if we're waking up and starting the show whether the Jets in first place, I'm going to mention it. But again, there's a lot of runway to go. And I think even as we've seen, as the Jets have played at this incredible clip, Colorado's right there. Dallas is right there. But we get into February and into March, and we're having these same conversations. There'll be a big push to try and get first place because I tell you, I'd definitely rather play probably one of the wild card teams. Although Edmonton is a especially dangerous opponent, although that would be a really fun series. As opposed to, Dallas is the one team that's given the Jets some fits so far this season in their two meetings so far. And obviously Colorado has some big-time firepower. So, listen, if you make it to the Stanley Cup playoffs, you're playing a really solid team no matter what. Right now, though, the Jets just need to keep on building on all these wins. Let's check out the Cool Bet lines tonight. By the way, Lock Shop returns tomorrow. You can check that out at noon over on the Edmonton Sports Talk channel. Tonight, we got the Bruins in Seabus to take on the Blue Jackets. Bruins -225 favorites. Really good one between the top two teams in the Met. Carolina at MSG to take on the Rangers. Rangers a -120 favorite. Caps and Penguins going at it in Pittsburgh. -188 are the Penguins favorites. The Habs are in Dallas to take on the Stars. I don't say this too often, but go Habs go. Dallas -287 favorites. That game I told you between the Flames and the Wild, that's a pick'em, -108 on each side. The Predators are a big -290 favorite at home against the Blackhawks. We have the Panthers and the Coyotes going at it tonight in Arizona at the Mullet. Panthers minus 168 favorites. The Islanders can do the Jets a favor if they can beat the Avalanche's plus 146 underdogs. Colorado's minus 172. Philly and Edmonton go at it in northern Alberta. Oilers are minus 182 home favorite. Flyers have been great on the road this season. Don't sleep on them. All-Canadian matchup in Vancouver between the Sens and the Canucks. Canucks minus 158 favorites. And the Leafs and the Kings playing at Crypto. Minus 142 are the Kings favorites in that game. And wow, we've also got a game in the Shark Tank. The Red Wings and San Jose. Detroit minus 180 favorites. The one game that I didn't mention is the Jets in Tampa. The Jets are minus 144 home favorites against Tampa. Let's see some goal scorers tonight. What do we got? We got Kucherov as the number one on the list at plus 125. Braden Point plus 162. Scheifele plus 168. Ehlers plus 180. Velarde plus 195. But I mentioned Nikolai Ehlers because we do have our first WST parlay of the year in the Coolbet exclusives. Jets to win in the money line. They can win in regulation. They can win in a shootout. They can win in overtime. The Jets just need to win. Nikolai Ehlers to score and Josh Morrissey to record an assist. Plus 490 with the boost from the Coolbet boys there. So I don't know. I got a feeling I think Ehlers starts the year off in a much different fashion than he started the season off. To start the season, he was out of the lineup. But right now, Remo, I think this line gets back on it tonight against a great challenge in the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, I was leaning towards them as well. They didn't score on the weekend. It was the bottom lines. And you look at this Tampa defense tonight, they're missing a couple guys. They're actually missing one guy. They're only playing, 5D here? So no Sergachev, led by Hedman. Curious what his minutes are going to be. Yeah, this is...
Take the over on
Hedman,
whatever that is.
Perbix, DeHaan, Radish, and Philip Myers. Only dressing 5D. So I thought, this might be a letdown game for the Jets. Back on the road, back at home for one before heading out. You had the emotional back-to-back. I don't know. Maybe my tune has been changed. So they're minus 143 favorite. So I do like that. I want to say, that top line, they can play power play, so they have good chance to score. But the Jets' power play has not been scoring, so I don't know if that really matters. But I still would look at Velarde, Ehlers, Scheifele to score if you're picking a goal scorer. Although Nino had decent odds for a guy who's been filling the net too.
Well, for sure. Anyways, I'm riding with Ehlers tonight. Ehlers a goal, Morrissey assist, Jets to win. That's boosted to plus 490. Winnipeg Sports Talk parlay in the Coolbet exclusives, and plenty to sprinkle on tonight in a massive slate of games in the NHL. Use the promo code WST if you haven't before on your first deposit, and we'll give you a 100% bonus up to $200 for using WST. All right, couple things that we need to get to, but it's 3:17. And again, you said we could talk for 4 or 5 hours today. That is true, but we do want to get these podcasts up so people can listen before the game tonight. But RIP to Team Canada this morning at the World Juniors. Bounced in the quarterfinals, so there will be no three-peat. There will be no medal for Canada. I think the expectations for this team were muted a little bit, although a lot of Canadians just expect gold every time the red and white gets out there. We knew the Americans were the favorites. Sweden had a really strong team. And unfortunately, they just didn't have that firepower. Battled back from an early 2-0 lead, but gave up a heartbreaking goal off the defenseman with 11 seconds left in regulation. And that's it for Canada. So Jet fans can focus on Rutger McGroarty, who had a hat trick on the weekend, I believe scored earlier today as well. And Elias Salmonsson on Sweden. And I'm hoping for a USA-Sweden final so we can see both of those guys go head-to-head.
Yeah, Team USA has been the team of Winnipeg here in the World Juniors following Rutger, who's having a great tournament after not playing for so long because of the injury that he suffered while playing with Michigan. So disappointing, almost a shocking finish there at the dying seconds for Canada to lose. But these other teams, they're pretty good too. And We'll see how Canada responds and comes back next year, but certainly a tough one. And who I really think of in this time, Huss, is the executives at TSN and what the ratings are going to be now that Canada's not in the gold medal game. That's who I really feel sorry for, not for the Canadian hockey fans who live and die with the World Jays.
No, listen, we won't shed a tear for anybody in any of those offices in downtown Toronto. But hey, it would have been great to see our Canadians move on. But Unfortunately, they lose to the Czechs 3-2. There were a couple of other thrillers. I mean, USA smoked Latvia 7-2. But the other two games went to OT. Finland beat the Slovaks 4-3 in overtime. And the Swedes had to go to overtime to beat Switzerland in the quarterfinals as well. Now, I don't see, I'm trying to see on TSN, for the fact that they've got this big World Junior schedule on the front, you think now that these games are done, they might have the schedule for the quarterfinals or for the semifinals. We don't have that up, but those will be obviously the semis and the gold medal game. Do we know who it is? Do you have them?
Well, I don't know if you heard, we're doing the show, so we're not watching, but there was a very controversial penalty call on a Swiss player who gave a half-hearted slash after a whistle on a Swedish player and got called for a penalty in overtime.
And that was the OT
and
power play winner?
Yeah, Mike Johnson apparently went off on the broadcast as well. And, we saw officiating in the Jets Wild series, play a factor. Officiating in the Saturday night Cowboys Lions, we didn't even touch on any NFL here, play a factor. And officiating, I think the story in this one, helping out the home team, Sweden. So you want to hear this? Should I play the audio of this Mike Johnson call? His reaction?
Sure.
You want to hear this?
If you have it, yeah. I'm here
Okay,
for
I'm
it.
not going to play the video, but here's the audio of the call.
So Miley's number 28. Oh my goodness. You cannot call that a spearing major. He shoved him. That is not a spear. That is a poke at best. That is, you can't call, given what they have not called in the last 5 minutes, you cannot call this. That is not a spear.
So there's Mike Johnson reacting to an overtime penalty at the World Juniors.
Oh, okay. Well, the IHF doesn't have the matchups up there yet. We'll know them tomorrow, and we'll talk about it here on the program. But Jet fans can focus in on Elias Salmonsson and Rucker McGroarty with Sweden, who were the benefits of a very sketchy call, apparently, according to Mike Johnson. Of course, the Americans who rolled over the Latvians. And Rucker's looking like he's back. Hat trick over earlier in the weekend, a goal today. Gold medal game will go 12:30 on Friday. So we can kind of have a little watch-along party here on WST while we do the show in between Jet games in San Jose and Anaheim. You know what? As I said, we'll get into NFL tomorrow on the program. Maybe we'll have Connor jump on and we can do another little roundtable as we normally do on Mondays. There was just so much to get to today. And obviously we had that other content out for you yesterday on the program. But speaking of the World Juniors, a big congratulations to Dennis Bayak, who called his final game today in his incredible career. We'll look forward to having Dennis on at some point once he gets back to Canada. But Jet fans know what an incredible guy and broadcaster Dennis is, so we wanted to congratulate him on finishing up over there overseas. And we also need to give a big congratulations to a great friend of ours, Remo, and that's Dave Poulin. Big news out of Ottawa. Steve Stales, president of hockey operations, has named himself the GM, and Dave Poulin has been hired as the senior VP of hockey operations. And listen, we've had the pleasure of dealing with a ton of, people that have been involved in hockey. I can honestly tell you that there is no one that has been more supportive of us, of what we were doing, and had more time for us than Dave Poulin. To be honest, we would often pre-tape with Dave when he came on the program with us. And Remo, I'm sure you'll agree. I mean, the best conversations often we'd have in a week would be that 5 or 10 minutes just shooting it with Dave before we actually kind of got serious and got down to it. He is an absolute gem of a guy. And I can tell you that I'll be cheering for the Ottawa Senators in games not against the Winnipeg Jets, just because of how much respect and appreciation I have for Dave.
Yeah, big fan of Dave. He was always so generous with his time and coming on with us. And yeah, reached out, when things happened with us in March 2021. I did email him last night, congratulatory note. He emailed back right away, said we'll chat this week, but enjoyed my time with you guys. So professional and always fun. So we'll miss his insight on the show, but I'm, hopefully Ottawa can get it turned around here and, get back towards the playoffs. But, Dave, pretty knowledgeable at hockey and, worked in the front office with the Maple Leafs for many years. And now he's with the Ottawa Senators. So looking forward to seeing how that turns out for them.
Yeah, you got it. All right. So anyways, yeah, we will talk about and we will get into some NFL tomorrow, going into the final week of the season. Although I'll finish with this. Maybe the best thing I saw all weekend long was Calamari himself, Kyler Murray, rolling in to the link in Philly to play the Philadelphia Eagles wearing a Pittsburgh Penguins Sidney Crosby jersey and then winning and beating the Eagles, handing them a devastating loss. It looks like they're going to be fifth they're going to be the 5 seed now, as long as Dallas takes care of business next week. Dallas got a huge break, thanks to the referees, with a blown call on a successful 2-point convert that would have won the game for Detroit. But Kyler Murray, your troll game is number one. And that was a hell of a statement to make going into the stadium, and it was a hell of a statement to make on the stadium. Listen, great show today. Thanks to Mike and Jeff for jumping on. Thanks to everyone that's been with us this entire time. If you haven't already, please hit that thumbs up button. We're looking for a big, big number today. We're at 269. We've still got well over 400 people in here. So if you haven't already, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button on your way out. If you want some more content from WST, don't forget Connor's Jets This Week is up, as well as the Best of Bones 2023. Leave a comment in both of them if you watch them on YouTube. That helps us out as well. And a huge thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Gang, Happy New Year to you all. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll break it down tomorrow. Look ahead to the big road trip coming up for the Winnipeg Jets. And much more tomorrow on WST. Join us live at 1 on YouTube. And your podcast will be ready just around 3:30 in time for your drive home. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll see you tomorrow on WST. Happy New Year once again.
Oh, my God. Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.